Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Let's move each.
Just to the chamber for helping pull off the boat races, and on that same day, it was a big day for Bird County. So the people that went out and their pavilion scientist thing and counted birds, so we can keep an idea on how things are going.
Very good. I have a couple that I'll wait till later on to talk about during our items, but okay, so we'll move on. Advisory committees, items and reports. For CAB, there is a representative here this morning, I believe. Morning, Betty.
Good morning. Morning to you, Mayor, and our Vice Mayor, and all of our council members. It's been a long time coming to the 60% point for our Bay Oaks redevelopment plan, and soon on to that 90% plan. I'm excited. And if you would come talk to any of our BORCAB members, I believe that you would see how they feel about this. As you well know, we were told to dream big, and dream big we did. Then reality set in, and we were quickly sent back to the drawing board. We've been working tirelessly on this project, as have you. We certainly appreciate the support you have given to our plan, and we look forward to moving ahead to that 90% point. Lots more work to be done, but it looks as if we have a vision that will soon become a reality. Thank you for your continued support as we work together for the betterment of our island, making the Bay Oaks campus a location that youth, adults, residents, and visitors alike come to for their recreational activities. We look forward to an outstanding future at Bay Oaks. I'd like to conclude by saying that we could use more volunteers for Fright Night. I believe we have enough candy at this point, but your participation would be greatly appreciated. Also, I want to send a special thank you to Chelsea O'Reilly and to Ed Ryan for helping to fundraise for candy donations and for all the supplies that we have needed for Fright Night. Also, thank you to all the community members that have made generous donations to our event. Hope to see you all Friday at Fright Night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Betty Simpson. Any questions for Betty?
I just have one. Thank you for being here this morning, Betty. I just, at our last meeting, the new fitness square came up that's going to be right on Estero Boulevard in front of Bay Oaks, and it's quite spectacular. I just wondered, I encourage your group to take a look at it along with Roger and his team and see how it's best positioned in that space. Which direction faces Estero, which goes sideways. It's such a prominent location, and it's an excellent collection of fitness equipment. And then second of all, I wondered if you all could take a look as well. I've heard reports that as excellent as the equipment is, it is subject to weather or being impacted by the weather adversely. So if there's any ways to help weatherize that against that ocean air, I've heard in other areas that it does grade pretty quickly. So just a couple things. I mean, but it has great potential. It's a great facility. But those two things, I just would encourage your committee to work with the town to see if we can get maximize the impact of this fitness facility.
I appreciate your comments on that. That's a 30 by 30 square foot fitness area, about half the size of a tennis court, as you know. And it features 7 exercise movements in a 7-minute design. And I don't know how many of you could do that. Well, a lot of you could do that in 7 minutes. I'll probably take a little bit longer than that. But it will encourage healthy lifestyles, and we've been excited about it. But now I know we have done some reading on it, and there have been comments made. So I think a lot more thought has to go into it and taking care of some of those things.
Very
So
good.
thank you for your concern.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I would also comment, if anybody really is looking at volunteering for Fright Night, it's in one night, it's a chance to dress up and scare the jelly beans out of little kids. It's a good time and it's a great activity.
Good, good, thank you.
I would echo that. It's a real good time and we're looking forward to it. If anybody hasn't yet and you're looking for a good time on Friday night, it's always fun. Thanks,
Thank you.
Betty. Appreciate that. Okay, next item is the approval of minutes. We have the October 4th, 2021 Town Council meeting minutes and also the October 7th Management and Planning Session minutes. Is there a motion to approve these minutes or change or correct or anything?
Move to approve.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the presentation. This is the Fort Myers Beach Camera Project from Flock Safety. Flockers here? There they
Sir,
are.
yes, they are.
All right.
Before Mr. Proutman begins from Flock, I just want to mention that we also extended an invitation to Greenwire. And unfortunately, they couldn't make it today, but we have them scheduled for your next council meeting. And they were the second of the two vendors that were referred to us by the Lee County Sheriff's Office. So just so you know that there's a second vendor that you can look at if you wish to.
Thank you.
Proutman, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Council members, appreciate the opportunity. We're having some technical difficulty. I have an Apple computer, so we couldn't get the presentation to work, so I'm going to kind of wing this. It was just a PowerPoint, so I'll touch on the main points of our camera system. So my name is Todd Troutman. I handle all the law enforcement accounts for Flock Safety. Flock Safety is out of Atlanta. We started in 2017. We're the fastest growing license plate vehicle recognition company in the country. We started as an HOA company, putting cameras in HOAs that would capture vehicles entering and exiting the HOA. If there was a crime that happened, maybe in the middle of the night entering an auto, you can go into this footage. The sheriff's department, not non-law enforcement can't go into the footage, but you can go into the footage and pull back images of possible suspects. If it's a stolen vehicle, it enters into the neighborhood, it would actually send an alert to the sheriff's department. Back in 2019, we put in our first law enforcement camera in Jersey Village, Texas. We're currently over 1,200 law enforcement agencies in that short period of time. And the reason being is license plate recognition cameras have been around a while. It's good technology. It's great technology. We didn't recreate the wheel. We took a good existing technology and we added improvements to it. So just to give you a basic understanding of a license plate recognition. Cameras, license plates are reflective. So infrared bounces it off a reflective plate. It reads the characters. It takes those characters and it matches against the hot list. NCIC, which is the National Crime Information Center, or FCIC, the Florida Crime Information Center. Once those alerts, if a stolen vehicle passes that, it would send an alert directly to Lee County Sheriff's Office. The County Sheriff's Office has had license plate recognition for several years. They currently are in the process of installing Flock cameras. They've had the Flock software for almost a year now. So they do have access to this software. So if the town decided to move forward with Flock, they would have instant access to all what we call hot plates. The difference in Flock and traditional LPR, and this is the camera. This is an infrastructure-free camera, runs on solar power. We don't need power. We don't need internet. We can drop this in the ground very quickly to install. We use motion to start and stop recording. The benefit is to that is 70% of all crimes include a vehicle. And if the law and FBI stats are that if the law enforcement agency does not have an objective lead or an investigative lead very, very quickly, there's an 87% chance that crime goes unsolved. So what happens with these cameras, it actually starts and stops recording, takes 8 bursts of video, and then it presents that video to the sheriff's department. It also has hot list alerts built in. So if a stolen vehicle came over the bridge coming into the town to cause some issues, It's a proactive system where it would alert all the patrol vehicles in this area.
Stop you for a quick question there.
Sir.
You mentioned that they're motion activated now, because you do some different product, right? With the license plate reading cameras, that means it's got to be an automobile, like pedestrian activity?
No, good question. So anything that passes, we use machine learning and artificial intelligence on the back end. But when it captures those 8 bursts of video, we take the best image when you go in and search, and then we present it to you. Okay, we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to pull things out of that image, such as, is it a golf cart? Is it a bicycle? Is it a motorcycle? Is it a pedestrian? We can do make, model, color. This is why Lee County is so excited about this type of technology, because if an eyewitness in the town calls up, say somebody's on vacation and he said it was a black Chevy pickup truck, they can go in and say, show me all black Chevy pickup trucks that were in the area at the time of that crime. It takes all that, anything that passes in front of the camera, it could be an animal, could be a golf cart, could be a pedestrian, anything that passes in front of the camera captures it, and then it becomes searchable. Thank you. Once again, infrastructure free, runs on solar power. These cameras are $2,500 per year per camera. It's a subscription model, and we didn't really know how the subscription model would play out, but we're finding out that it's working out very well in the law enforcement arena, because not dropping a bunch of equipment on your door and then kind of leaving you. So the subscription model makes us earn your business every year. It's our responsibility to take care of the cameras. There's nothing that the town of Fort Myers Beach needs to do as far as maintaining these cameras. Just tell us where you want to put them. When we put them in, we're responsible for making them work. Another benefit to the subscription model is that you're always in the latest and greatest. For example, this is the Falcon 2 camera. If we come out with the Falcon 3, and let's say you have 4 cameras around the town, one of the cameras goes down, we put in the Falcon 3. You're in the latest and greatest. If, let's say, 2-3 years passes, you haven't had any problems, we're going to replace the cameras with the latest and greatest anyway, because our business model, we don't want to start rolling trucks down here to fix cameras. If we do roll a truck for some reason, 90% of the problems on this camera can be fixed remotely. There's alarms on this camera, and I'll give you an example. During COVID up in Atlanta, there's probably 2,500 cameras in the city of Atlanta. 90% of the law enforcement agencies up there use this camera. When COVID, the day before, it was used to reading 100,000 plates. Next day, when nobody went in, these cameras using machine learning and artificial intelligence actually learn traffic patterns. It was like, listen, we're used to scanning 100,000 plates. We just did 20,000, so all of our alarms started going off. The reason I tell you that is the benefit for the town is we know a lot of times before you guys will know there's a problem, and that camera will be fixed. If we can't fix it remotely, we'll let you know when we're running a truck to fix it. So the big benefit also is with this is Lee County Sheriff's Office. Several command staff from Lee County actually have this exact camera outside their neighborhood. And the reason they do that is for security purposes. They want to be proactive. Anybody rolls in there, a lot of times when they roll in there to commit a crime, it's with a stolen vehicle. Not coming in their own vehicle, they come in a stolen vehicle. Currently, we have 40-something agencies in Florida that are using Flock, actual hardware that they've installed. There's another 40 that are just using the software to access private communities and businesses. So any questions about that?
Just a quick question. I appreciate the proactive piece with respect to stolen vehicles, but I'm having a hard time understanding. I understand it's a reactive dynamic. If we're looking for a suspect, how does it help on the deterrent side? Do you post signs that this is an area that's been patrolled by cameras? I mean, where's the deterrence piece?
Yes, sir, you can. A lot of the HOAs will put signs, not so much the cities, but the HOAs will put signs saying this is monitored by Flock Safety. So it's that monitoring piece that they see in the sign. I would say on the investigative side, what happens is that the criminals understand. They talk just like we talk. Right? And if you have a couple of success stories, which you will, there's stolen vehicles coming through here. We see it in every city. I'll give you an example. Up in Cobb County, I don't know if you are familiar with Cobb County up in the Atlanta area where there's Six Flags area is up there. We put some cameras around a hotspot area, and within 6 months, they saw a 64 crime. Reason being is a lot of times it's the same people committing the crimes. Once you make that arrest and those individuals are off the street, you'll see your crime drop. Now, for the investigators at Lee County, what'll happen is they get all that intel. So with Lee County, with the real-time crime center, it's about getting a lot of evidence very, very quickly. That's how they solve crimes. So if they get eyewitness testimony, I don't know, it was a red vehicle. These cameras can search by things like bumper stickers, bike racks, roof racks. Somebody could call in and say, you know, it was a white pickup truck and it had an FSU bumper sticker on it because I'm an FSU fan. They can go in and say, show me every vehicle that had a bumper sticker.
So, but focusing back on the deterrence concept,
Mhm.
you say the deterrence primarily works from the criminal community communicating with each other.
Just saying, don't go over there. They have cameras. If you go over there, you know, Phil got arrested over last week for going into town of Fort Myers Beach. So a lot of times, and the sheriff's department will tell you, they talk. So if they know that you have these cameras in place, a lot of times they'll stay out of the area. And what'll happen is they'll roll in, and I don't know if a lot of agencies will put press releases out when there is a success story. Clearwater PD just put in 50 of these in Clearwater, and in 6 weeks, they just went over 75 arrests. I got the email this morning before I walked in. So
There is an option for signage though, because
There's
we
an
have a very transitory dynamic with all the tourists coming here. So you don't have that, you don't have as much of the communication because there's a lot of new people coming all the time.
yes, sir.
Okay.
We can provide a signage. Let me add too, just on a kind of a off the thing, this also picks up state of plate. For some reason, if you wanted to use it for marketing, this is kind of just of a kind of an offset feature. You could say, show me every vehicle that was here last month from Alabama. It allows you to search by. So I wanted to mention that because we've had towns that have said, yeah, you know, especially towns like this where you have a lot of visitors coming in, you could actually pull it up by state of plate. It picks up the state of plate. Oh, if once again, an eyewitness calls up and says it was a Texas plate, it was a pickup truck, I know what a Texas plate looks like. The county sheriff can go in and say, show me every Texas plates that entered the town of Fort Walton Beach between this time and this time. Yes, sir. We do have signs.
Are they mounted high or are they mounted low or?
So we can put them on existing poles. Several poles I was driving in, the caution poles that you guys have where the curves,
Yes.
it flashes. I could actually take a solar panel about that big with the camera. It's about a 20-minute install. We also have a 14-foot pole that we provide, still part of the same price. It's not extra. It's 14 foot high. We drop it in the ground 2 feet, so it's 12 foot high.
They'll be visible to anybody driving too.
They'll be visible. They may not, yeah, they're going to see it. And some people know it's a camera. They just don't know what type of camera it is.
Hey, guys know it's a camera.
That guys know it's a camera.
So just to Council Adderall's point, clearly we can, we could and publicize the fact that there's surveillance. People are aware of that, if council decides they want to do that. Wouldn't necessarily be part of their contract per se, but something that the town could do. The thing that Todd told me when he and I talked was, there are a lot of license plate reader cameras, but some of them only work off the reflectivity of the license plate. If the license plate is dirty or covered up, you may have even seen some of them sold on YouTube commercials where put this over your license plate and they can't recognize your license plate when you're speeding and other things. Because of the way that this technology is set up, it will still take a picture of that vehicle even if it doesn't see the reflectivity of the plate. Is that correct?
Sir, thank you, Roger, for that. So yes, being that the way to think about it is if you can see it with your eyes, this camera can pick it up. So we just solved a kidnapping up in Atlanta, and from the time the kid was snatched, it was a 1-year-old child it was stranger on stranger. Right before they took the kid, they stepped out of the car, took their license plate off, and put a temporary tag on, one of a dealer tag, which a lot of criminals use because they know about this technology. They rolled up, they took the 1-year-old child, they drove, they stopped, put their real plate back on. law enforcement was able to go in based on the make, model, color, instead of show us all red vehicles. So we were able to go back a couple weeks later, before, and pick out that vehicle. And then we were able to put a plate to it. So the time the kid was kidnapped to the time he was covered was 7.5 hours. It was a national story up in Atlanta. But the benefit is this picks up the motion. So temporary plates, no plates. If a vehicle rode in without a plate, the county investigators are trained to see things we're not trained to see. So even giving them a picture of a vehicle, it may have a dent on the left side. It may have an aftermarket different wheel on the driver's side. They look at all this information. So we're just gathering evidence, and then we're presenting it to Lee County Sheriff to do with it, what they need to do with it.
You had said you just tell us where to put them and we'll put them there. Does Flock Safety at all make any recommendations as to where they would suggest they go?
Yes, sir, and we've done that. So great point. I first met with Roger. We have a whole division that's ex-law enforcement that are investigators. So what we do is we take a look at, based on their experience, obviously you put them at the entrances, coming in over the bridge. That way you know who's coming in and who and when they left. That's the proactive part. They roll over, they're on the hot list. We also, before I forget, we have an integration with Missing and Murdered Children Network. So if a Amber Alert goes out, it's automatically pushed out to our cameras. So it would alert on that. Yes, sir. So it would be on the entries and exits from the bridges. And then I think, is there a Publix here?
Yes.
So we put them around the Publix because you have, it's based on the investigator. So, and this is where if you're going to see crime, it's going to be here, just based on their experience. And I believe we mapped out, Roger, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think they've recommended a couple of suggestions. If we get to that point, we can talk about those and see if the council thinks that they're appropriate. The other thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if Todd, if you covered this or not, that configuration when we were doing this vertical mapping of locations was to also be sure we can capture the sidewalk and lane of traffic in each direction so that there's an incident on the sidewalk, that would also be recorded.
We can, yes, sir. We can take a look at that and make sure the field of view is where we can see, parts of the sidewalk. So if somebody's passing that, we just did that up in Alley's Beach, up in, on 30A, up in Panama City Beach or the Panhandle. They're doing the same thing because there are a lot of bikers up in that area during vacation. So that's another thing we've been taking into consideration is the placement. So we do actually get that bicycle or that golf cart or whatever that's in that field of view.
How do these cameras work? It's just a random thought, but how do these cameras work as far as being able to pick up vessel numbers? One of the marinas decided they wanted to have one in the back bay.
Great question.
How does it work with that? Is it simple?
So in theory, it should work. We're actually working with Charleston right now at their bridge up in Charleston, South Carolina, because they have a lot of drug boats that run through there. Port St. Lucie County just purchased 9 of these, and we're putting them at the marina to capture both the vessel numbers. If you can see it, then we can capture it.
So besides, I guess just to help since we don't have the presentation, besides being able to digitize the license plate when it reads the license plate and get a sort of silhouette of the vehicle for mapping it to known vehicles. The camera also records, was it 6 frames?
A 6 to 8
seconds?
6 to 8 bursts of video.
Video, so you get a physical picture as well.
You can hit play when you pull up the software, and council members could have access to the system. If you wanted username and password, you obviously wouldn't get hot list alerts, but if you wanted to pull up if something happened and you wanted to pull it up, you could do that. It would just be based on username and password.
So you just raised a really interesting issue. First of all, I hope we're consulting with the sheriff's department on locations as well, since they're the folks on the ground here. I think we're going to have some concerns, and you probably have a lot of experience with this. Maybe our town attorney wants to comment on this. I mean, these are great crime prevention systems and have great impact on criminal activity, but I think there's also the privacy concerns. I'm not sure the residents of our island want us council people policing wherever everybody's comings and goings. I guess that leads to my question. This data that we're gathering, would that be solely in the purview of the sheriff's department? Or how is it protected? How is people's privacy protected?
So it's 30 days of storage, so it's rolling 30 days. It deletes it after 30 days. The sheriff's office would be the only one, if you wanted to set it up like that, that would have access to the cameras within the town of Fort Myers Beach. They would be the only ones that have access to that. There's a transparency portal that allows the public to log into Lee counties and say, what's your or the city, what's your policy, your license plate recognition policy? Show me how many plates that you've scanned. Once again, this does not match it up to DMV records, like who owns that vehicle. The Supreme Court ruled that you have no right of privacy to your license plate or anything that's in view of the public 100% of the time. So the 30-day retention policy is something that really kind of shook up the license. There's some agency or there's some business vendors out there that keep it forever. ACLU doesn't have a problem with license plate recognition. They have a problem with the storage, because that way you can see where people are going. Where'd they go last, 6 months ago, last year? So the 30 days has really kind of quelled that, but certainly law enforcement would be the only one that would have access to it.
Is that all? Yeah, one of the reasons we're going the route to work with companies that the sheriff is already working with is for that reason. We don't necessarily want to collect those records or have those records here per se. So, if someone's mad at their neighbor, we don't want to be involved in those types of issues of people trying to gain information through the town. So our initial effort with respect to identifying potential vendors was to go through the two people that LCSO is using currently, because then they have that existing relationship. All we're doing is saying we're paying for, 4, 6, or whatever number of cameras located throughout town. And that's all we're doing. And that information, everything else is going to the sheriff's office.
I appreciate that. I think that's appropriate. Thank you. Yep.
So the intent is that the town won't be using this information. It could be
Well,
looking
if we needed it, we would go to the sheriff, just like if we needed a copy of a police report for an incident that happened in town, we would go to them, help the district captain. Oh, we're trying to find out what happened about this. They may provide that record, in film or in paper or verbally. That's up to them. They provide an answer to that inquiry to us.
I think the last 2 points you brought up are they kind of have a similar solution. I think putting signs up is a way to let people know that they are being monitored. So it not only works as a deterrent, but it also helps people understand that they're in a public place.
And I think there's one other thing that kind of slid by that I should mention, and that is that for private vendors, condominiums, shopping complexes, and other people who want to do this, they could, if they wanted to, make a private arrangement with Flock. Is my that would go to the sheriff's office. So if you have a condominium building, perhaps that's not overly utilized in the off season, and they wanted the advantage of having that for a relatively small amount, they could have benefit of being part of the larger system that we would be part of, and that information could go to the sheriff's office as well.
The sheriff he's pushing a project called Community Connect, and this is right in line with that. So we've had a lot of referrals from the sheriff's office, private businesses and within Lee County that are putting these in. Instant force multiplier for the sheriff's office.
Any entity, I mean, it can even be a neighborhood that has a problem with crime. They can get together and they can install a camera.
It could be any neighborhood. It could be, again, this is just sort of putting our toe in the water on this concept. We may at some point in time decide that, for example, all the town beach accesses will have one. That's something to be determined at a later date. Other town assets. So we can go in that direction in the future if we're happy with the results we get initially.
Do you ever have one that's kind of more portable, one that moves around?
We have Sarasota Police Department put in 8-foot poles. So we have an 8-foot pole option. With the 14-foot pole, we use concrete, about to stabilize the pole. But with the 8-foot pole, it's easily be picked up and moved. Or you could actually move it from, if it was an existing pole, doesn't take much to move the solar panel and the camera to another location. We could, certainly, we've trained Public Works to do that, so it's not,
So you wouldn't have to come and do it.
we wouldn't, if we did it, it's only $150. We can come and move it for $150, but those guys can handle it. We'll also mention that Sheriff's Office shares with other agencies, like Polk County has 64 of these cameras. Indian River County just put in a bunch. Clearwater has 60. There's several I could read off, but my point is they share data, right? Miami-Dade's coming on board, Broward County. So they can share data, meaning if they're looking for a hot plate down there, they can add that into these cameras, and then it pushes out to these cameras. So it may be something that's happening clearly away from the town of Fort Walton Beach, but if they happen to roll up in here, they're going to get an alert. It allows law enforcement to share that data amongst themselves.
Flock, a private or public company?
It's a private company. Yes, sir. We just received our fourth round of funding. It was $150 million from Andreessen Horowitz, which is, I don't know if you know much about the VC world, but they're Facebook, Reddit, Uber. So they kind of throw money at the leading industry players. Our last business evaluation was for $1 billion. So we're growing very quickly.
Well, as clients, you'd let us know if you were going to take it public, huh? Sounds like you've got the whole state of Florida wrapped up already. Any other questions for this gentleman?
Mr. Mayor, we have a further discussion of this on later on the agenda. We'll provide you with some hard copy information, but we just want to make sure that there's some questions about technical aspects of this that we couldn't answer or discuss at that point, that Ms. Chapman was here to answer any of those types of questions for you.
And if I need to come back and sit down and do a live demo for the council members, I'll be glad to do that. Just
What we'll try to do is work with Mr. Troutman to see if we can get his demo and send it to you all after the meeting in some fashion that you can receive it.
I do know you pretty much have one product, like your reader.
Actually-
And the software.
actually, it's a good question. So actually, tomorrow, we're actually releasing gunshot detection. You would be able to add gunshot detection. It's called the Raven to so if you had a flock camera on a pole, you would add a sensor on there. And once it hears gunshots, not just gunshots, but it's noise detection. So screeching tires. There's a lot of drag racing problems, throughout the country. So they'll put them in areas. They hear those screeching tires or a gunshot. It starts this camera and once again starts recording evidence. So it matches that gunshot area with any vehicle that may be leaving. We have something called the OWL camera that's coming out, which is a situational awareness camera. And that I talked to Roger about that at the parks and the beach entrances. So if you had a park that closed at 8 o'clock, nobody's supposed to be in the park. If there's an OWL camera there and somebody walks past that camera, it would send an alert to Lee County Sheriff saying somebody just entered the park. They could go over there. If it sees a gun, it sends an alert. Those types of things. So we're working on several different products.
So the OWL camera is designed more for not around the license plate reader, but around their
Situational awareness, right? It would still pick up a plate in alerts, but this is for vehicle recognition. The OWL would be for situational awareness, things that aren't necessarily vehicles.
That would be in populated areas like or square areas, something like
Square,
that.
yep, we're seeing them there. We're seeing them at parks. We're seeing them at marinas, boat docks, or boat ramps. Have a lot of break-ins, entering autos and boat ramps. So they'll put that camera there and just once again for evidence.
Great deterrence. I'm glad they weren't around when I was a kid. Yeah.
One last question. Do you have any mobile cameras as of this time?
So you guys are familiar with Axon body cameras and tasers. They do the taser. So we actually partner with Axon. Axon, that's the only company. We're the only license plate vehicle recognition company that they partner with. So they have their in-car video is Fleet 3. Lee County is a Axon customer, so you can take the Flock software and add it on that in-car video, and it turns it into a mobile LPR. What you were meaning, or?
You answered my question.
Questions? Appreciate that, Mr. Troutman. Are you from Atlanta or from Florida?
I live up in Panama City Beach, Panhandle, but I'm from Atlanta.
That's a familiar name in Atlanta, Troutman.
Troutman and Troutman,
Yeah, yeah.
lawyers.
They
Haven't seen
were,
a check yet, so it's not my family.
they were at one time, to develop all the Sterile Bay back here,
Big.
Mr. Troutman from Atlanta. But anyhow, well, thank you for your presentation. That's, very interesting and, I guess that day is upon us now and we're not alone. So appreciate all that information and forward to dealing with you in the future, as I'm confident we will be.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very
Councilman
much.
Mizrahi.
Enjoy the rest of your time here. Okay. The next item is the consent agenda, and we have 3 items on here. Those are our proposed meeting schedule for 2022 for the town council, the submerged land lease for the mooring field, and RFP for fireworks in a not to exceed amount of $22,000. So if does anyone wish to pull an item here, or does anybody wish to move this agenda item?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
So Rexanne, you didn't see any conflict with,
I'm technically not our representative anymore. We alternate with Sanibel,
oh,
and
okay.
I have lost my voting privileges. I still attend, but don't have to be at a meeting, so this would take precedence. I can review them later by video if I need to or what.
Anything else? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we're going to get into some public hearings. And the next item is ordinance 21-06, which is the prohibition of plastic straws. Ernie, you want to read this? You want me to read it, or? Hold on. You can read it. This is the first reading and public hearing and ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida. Article 6 of Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances of the town of Fort Myers Beach, entitled Prohibition of Plastic Straws, to prohibit the distribution of non-biodegradable straws, providing for codification, severability, Scrivener errors, conflicts of law, and an effective date. We'll open the public hearing.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Brad Laporte. I'm the CEO of WinCup, who are the inventors of the Fade Straw, the PHA
Morning.
products. Good morning. So I want to, Michael, our innovation leader and doubling as quite a sexy assistant, we'll give you guys some.
I'll be the judge of that.
Give you guys some reading material that we'll cover briefly around Fade and PHA technology. First of all, thank you for entertaining the transition into new technology as we improve with license reading cameras and such. It's always good to develop new products that can help the environment and help us all out, obviously the turtles. So we did work with Murph. The work that we did with Murph was very successful. We went through a tremendous amount of Q&A explanation, but I wanted to kind of take a minute here to kind of review PHA with you guys. So PHA is, for those of you who don't know, is developed from fermented canola oil. So we take canola oil, ferment it, and then we take the amino acids from the bacteria and create a polymer called PHA, polyhydroxyalkanoates. We take that polymer and turn it into many different things. In this case, our Fade straws. Interesting thing about PHA and polyhydroxyalkanoates is bacteria that they're made out of is actually attracted to or become a food source for bacteria. So anywhere bacteria exists, PHA is consumed and eaten by other bacteria. So circular loop, when that bacteria consumes PHA, it creates CO2, which actually feeds the canola oil plants that create the next round of canola oil fermentation. That's the science behind PHA and how it all works. On page 3 of the small handout that you have are some competitive products that you're seeing in the marketplace today. Obviously, paper straws. The bad thing about paper straws are made with glue or Elmer's glue. Will use that type of technology to glue it all together. Your mother told you not to eat Elmer's glue. There's a reason why that you don't eat Elmer's glue. It actually contains some pretty polyvinyl acetate, which are some pretty harmful chemicals. The other thing is that many paper products contain PFAS. PFAS is a known respiratory challenge and a animal carcinogen. So paper is not always cracked up to what paper is supposed to be. Does not have any of those issues. The LA or polylactic acid, you'll see many plastic-looking straws that are called compostable in the market today. Please be careful with that technology. Compostability does not mean biodegradability. So in many instances, polylactic acid can only be composted at an industrial composting site. Anybody know how many industrial composting sites exist here in this county? 0. And the closest one is about an hour and a half from here. The chances of you getting your industrial compostable products to that facility is very minimal. The other side with products like PLA is it kind of confuses the public, meaning that the public sees compostable, they think that that's very good for the environment, and unfortunately it's not. The chances that if that product ends up in a marine environment, in your ocean, in your water, on your beach, that product will not go away. PHA is the answer to that. PHA will go away anywhere bacteria exists. If it ends up in the ocean, if it ends up in the waterway, if it ends up in your backyard, it will don't want any of those things to happen unless you're a backyard composter. PHA will go away anywhere bacteria. Why it's important, the proposed ordinance, why it's important, we feel, to keep the word marine biodegradable into it is on page 4 of your decks. Page 4 will show you the certification avenue for approving or receiving the marine biodegradable approval. It's 180 days. Talk about the biodegradable piece, 720 days to that approval. So if something takes 720 days or 2 years, you can still get the biodegradable approval. However, marine is the most stringent approval to receive. That's why we're so excited about FADE and what we've been able to do. It has to be done within 180 days. We actually received that approval within 93 days. So please be careful, and we respectfully ask that we add the marine word back into marine biodegradable into the ordinance, so that you don't confuse or I guess policing or enforcement doesn't have challenges around somebody claiming to be biodegradable, and then you're seeing those products in your waterways, you're seeing those products in your litter piles, etc., where the marine one will actually. On the enforcement side, I know you guys are very busy. I know Chad is, it's hard to enforce these type of ordinance. I would ask that you, again, add the word marine back into the ordinance to help Chad and the enforcement side out, because there are very few products, FADE being one of them. There are a couple competition competitors that are offering PHA straws. There are very few products that meet this stringent requirement of being marine biodegradable.
Question for you.
Yes.
I'm looking on your packaging, is it, once you get that designation, are you required to put it on the packaging? Marine biodegradable?
No. So there's different laws in different states. We like to tell people that they're marine biodegradable, and we use the blue color to be visible in the marketplace. We like to tell folks that they're doing the right thing for the environment. It's not a requirement that you do. On page 5, there were some questions around affordability. So this is, and just wanted to show you guys and girls the benefit, actually is a benefit for PHA or our particular products versus paper straws. So Aardvark is the nation's leading paper straw manufacturer. which, by the way, Aardvark claims to be compostable on their packaging, however, have never received BPI compostability approval for their paper straws. So again, some confusion. You can see the Aardvark straws versus Fade straws. And then Fade straws are actually cheaper than Aardvark straws. So from affordability to your proprietors in the general area, Fade will be actually a benefit. Lastly, we have effectively replaced so far, since we've launched our Fade products, 281 million plastic straws that would normally end up either in the environment, hopefully recycled, but most likely in a landfill. We have replaced those with Fade and PET straws. So we've been able to remove 280 million straws out of the environment so far since we launched Fade. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions.
Questions, gentlemen?
Going back to the packaging, you had asked about adding the word marine back in and how it would help our code enforcement identify. If they're not required to put it on the straw, what other avenues would code enforcement have to be able to determine if they were actually marine biodegradable?
I think it's gonna be more proactive. Right? So if you set an ordinance out there that says it has to be marine biodegradable, the proprietors have to go into the marketplace and look for products that are marine biodegradable. Go to the ordinance and say it just has to be biodegradable. There could be some confusion at the proprietary level going into the marketplace saying, well, these say compostable, these say biodegradable, these, actually there's one out there that looks like some brown stuff that says biofading, right? So I think being specific around the marine biodegradable side will help you on the onset of owners going in and ordering or picking the thing right for your environment, rather than trying to police.
Just a question on kind of labels here, because here you're saying biodegradable is 720 days. The definition in the ordinance is 1 year.
Yeah, so in orders, that's another confusion, right? So if you went to TUV or some of the certifying bodies, they have ASTM standards to meet biodegradable thresholds. For TUV on soil biodegradable, it is actually 720 days or 2 years. So that'll add more confusion into the marketplace versus the aid side or the marine biodegradable. Makes sense, Bill.
Maybe it's more a question for staff about where this definition came from.
Green Guides, that's FCC Green Guides. So this is to pass certification. FTC Green Guide says it has to go away in a year. Return to natural components within 365. Marine side will actually go away. I think you all been sent a video, if you've used a video of the actual age straw degrading in marine waters.
Is there a possibility that there would, by adding marine biodegradable, that there would be a product that would grade in the marine environment but not in soil?
It's usually a hierarchy to get to the marine. The marine is the most difficult environment because the bacteria is working, but the water is washing. So that becomes the more challenge. Soil environment's more stagnant and bacteria can work easier than being washed away on a continent. So we've never seen it go backwards, and the science would say that it wouldn't go in reverse. And will stay
In a marine environment, then the bacteria can't concentrate because
there's a lot more things going on in a marine environment than in your backyard, as you can imagine. Fish and wildlife and all the other things kind of tides and flows and so on. It is definitely the most stringent and it's the shortest for approval. You know, the 2 years on the soil side versus 180 days. It's specifically designed to be difficult to pass. It's a while to figure all the technology and science out to be able to get to.
Good. Other questions? Well, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, sir.
very good presentation. Is there anyone from the staff that wishes to make any comments?
What's your feeling about adding marine biodegradable? Biodegradable.
Sure. So Chad shoots environmental staff for the town. It won't solve our littering issues. Hope is that what does get out impose and hopefully be less of a issue for the environment.
I think, Council Beach, I think, the point is really from the, science/code enforcement standpoint. So, if there's someone's using a straw and we want to, and we need to validate it's appropriate under the ordinance, I believe asking for, having the word marine in the ordinance and asking them for evidence that it is, meets the marine criteria is a lot clearer than working through the entire variety of possibilities otherwise. So that puts a very finite in or you're out, versus trying to figure out straws from company A versus straws from company B versus straws from company C versus straws from company D, whether they meet the criteria of the ordinance. I think besides the ecological advantage that was described to you, I think from a definition standpoint, there is a benefit from code compliance.
Call that marine biodegradable.
Yes.
This is more specific. I can see that because if the definition we have here and the definition he has for biodegradable are different, then it seems like there's probably a lot of people have different definitions of what's biodegradable.
Yeah, anyone who, who hops on, via the internet, how everything is described is really, really hard, to figure out sometimes when you're trying to buy something. Trying to buy the best one, you're looking at 50 different ones of the same product and you're trying to figure out which is the best one. The same thing, we'll find ourselves in a similar situation where we're buying straws from Cheney Brothers, people buying straws from, Universal Brands and all these other companies who supply all the industry. And then within that, they have 10, 20, 30 manufacturers within each of those companies who are selling products. And we have to figure out, okay, which one of those doesn't meet the ordinance or not. So we get an email or inquiry, business so-and-so is not using appropriate straw. Now we have to do a bunch of detective work. It's a lot easier for us to go say, look, what's your straw, what straw are you using, and show us that it's marine criteria. It's a lot easier for us to find out that they're in compliance. It's easier for them because they don't get, some of the business owners, I'm sure that's not their expertise. They're just saying, I need straws, I need them to be this size, what's the price per gross or whatever it is, and that's what they're looking at. And they ask the people, Cheney Brothers or whomever, will this meet our town's criteria? They say yes, and they're off to the races. They're not just like doing for investigative work to determine and validate that the straws are appropriate.
So to that point, Mr. Town Manager, so if I'm a restaurant on this beach and I'm currently in compliance with the existing ordinance, as I understood it before, it was explained to me that this provides an additional option to them that's very environmental friendly. It sounds like we might be narrowing the definition as well. If we're not, are we going to still allow paper straws and PLA straws? In other words, could I be using a straw as a restaurant on this beach that's currently legal that will no longer be legal with this new definition?
Not marine biodegradable.
So again,
Well,
Yep.
if you're in compliance now, my understanding, if you're in compliance today, the straw that you're using, this ordinance is only adding another type of straw that would put you in.
The previous ordinance prohibits plastic straws, which is a physical trait. Straw basically tells them what they can use, which would be biodegradable. So there are, to someone's point, there are plastic straws that aren't allowed today that would be allowed, and then there are paper straws that are allowed today that may not be allowed because they're not marine
So
biodegradable.
Council Adderholt's point is valid, that might be a straw that they are using today that, based on this new ordinance, would not be allowed to use prospectively. So you may want to have a little bit of a lead-in date for them to go through their inventory.
I like that, Mr. Town Manager. I also like the fact that Chad, and I know these things are difficult, but maybe the public information officer could, I know we can't recommend specific vendors or brands, but maybe we could give a pretty detailed explanation as to what type of straw, Because I think a lot of our businesses want to be compliant. It's hard to know particularly as things evolve. So sounds like we need an education campaign as well as a little bit of a like time to not only use up existing inventory, but also for them to determine what the compliance straw is. It seems like there needs to be a little
Typically,
grace given.
yeah, typically what we do, Counselor, is besides what we do through our PIO is usually have someone literally go to every single business and talk to them. We give the base people like a sheet, copy of the ordinance in some cases, and they actually go to every business and say, make sure you're aware of this. Here's how you stay in compliance. Here's the compliance date. Here's the basic information. Here's where you can get more information if you need it. Usually do that face to face.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
interchange.
Yeah, great. That would be great.
I guess my question would be, by using the words marine biodegradable, are we basically eliminating all competition except for this company? Because I wouldn't want it to look like the town is favoring a particular raw manufacturer if there's another product out there that's still as good.
I think they've stated there are other manufacturers of this.
But do we know that all paper straws are bad? We know that? Do we want to eliminate them? I mean, I'm not taking a position, I'm just asking the question. Maybe there's a paper straw out there that is, you know, appropriate and would be good to have.
Well,
I hesitate to narrow this too much when there might be something else out there that
Right,
might be
right.
appropriate.
Vice Mayor, we basically went through this when we reduced it to paper straws. You know,
Right.
We read sort of a similar argument. So, you know, like I was mentioning to Council Adderall, what we could say to people is, you could use up your inventory or whatever, and that allows them to give us time. And let's just say there's some product that rides right on the line that we don't know about. It gives that person time to get in touch with us. Hey, you know, you inadvertently excluded my product. It should be included, and we and Murph can take a look at that and add it back in if that becomes an issue.
I guess my question is there a paper straw that is marine biodegradable? Okay.
May I defer to?
I'm seeing people saying yes, so
To the microphone.
Yeah.
simple yes is all I needed.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it involves an explanation. Yes, most paper straws are marine biodegradable. There are paper straw manufacturers or coating straws to make them more usable, that those straws particularly are not marine biodegradable, but your typical paper straw is marine.
Okay.
Mayor, members, I'm going to need the assistance of Mr. Schutz to change the definition of what's currently proposed, which is biodegradable, which was borrowing from the FTC Green Guide, to categorically state the straw had to be degradable within 1 year. So someone, you know, and someone with more experience and knowledge in this area is going to have to help me define what is marine biodegradable. And reading through the material, it seems to be either paper, or to the extent that it's some kind of a manufactured product that's other than that, it's HA, which is polyhydroxy alkanoates. So if that's what it is, then that, you know, I need to be told, but that's going to change the definition.
John, I think if we say we have and say that it has to be and green biodegradable, I think in many cases that might help us.
No, I beg to differ.
Okay, well,
I
we'll go with
mean,
your opinion because you're the attorney.
Yeah, it has to have some benchmark by which staff can look at the product or the information that's provided by the user, the restaurants, and say it meets this definition or it doesn't.
You need longer than November 1st? That's our tentative date for a second
Yeah, I
hearing.
know. I think we can have it before then.
Okay.
The other change that will come about as a result from this conversation is reverting back to the language on page 87 of your package, section 14-153, putting back in a date, a window. Is that going to stay 90 days as it was when the original ordinance was adopted? It'll say, beginning 90 days after the date of adoption of this ordinance codified herein, no person shall distribute straws within the town unless the straws and packaging are marine biodegradable.
That,
Reasonable?
that's where goes back to my original question. You said the packaging, and if it's not required for manufacturers to put the word marine on there, would they then be in violation of this ordinance because the packaging does not say marine biodegradable?
No, that's why it's critical to change the definition of biodegradable to marine to identify what it is that constitutes marine biodegradable. So looking at the label, if it's made up of what's smartly abbreviated as PHAs in the scientific data, then staff would be able to see on the label that the straws are PHA made and therefore comply with the code.
Since it seems we've moved on to asking questions of the town attorney. Had another one?
Go ahead.
But was this properly noticed? We advertised this hearing?
It certainly would. The second would normally, with an ordinance this type, you don't have to provide public notice until the second
Okay.
hearing.
Although I will tell you, Madam Vice Mayor, that it was on the local news that the council will be taking up this item this morning.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions of Chad? Sir? We'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this item? So a lot of head nodding going on. Anybody want to speak? Okay, Steve, you come on up.
If you want.
Identify yourself.
Steve Johnson, MRF Chair. Just the feedback really the MRF had when we really evaluated this, and we went into depth. PHA is really a environmentally friendly product. The fact that it completely decomposes in the marine environment is second to none. I think the only thing we found as being a problem, a potential problem, that structurally it takes slightly longer to break down than, let's say, a paper straw. So that could potentially cause an obstruction to a bird, wildlife, a turtle. The window was so narrow that we felt that all of the other benefits of this product and this technology far outweighed that potential downfall. And also, as stewards of the environment, we felt that as a community, we should support that technology and hopefully expand it to cups, to cutlery, to table, picnic stuff, because again, it completely decomposes and disappears in the marine environment. So that's really all I've got to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh. Okay, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to council. Is there anyone that wishes to comment any further than you already have? I'll just say that I have no opposition to the adding the word marine to it. Does somewhat limit it, but if we're really serious about our waters here, and frankly, that was the reason that the Marine Resources Task Force was founded to begin with. It was about the marine aspects of our island. We're an island. We're surrounded by water. Mayor Mulholland was adamant about protecting our water, particularly the Back Bay. And of course, since then, as the chairman noted, they've morphed into all things environmental, but that's okay, But it was primarily about our water, and I think that when you advertise it as marine biodegradable, and you send a message to the world that we're serious about our environment here on Fort Myers Beach. We're serious about our water. And it's one more way we can tell everybody that we're serious about our water, which is particularly in the limelight these days. And, and as far as the restaurants and the bars and whoever else, and the 7-Elevens and everybody else, they can advertise themselves, as far as I'm concerned. They can put a sign up and says, you know what? We're distributing only marine biodegradable straws because we care about this environment too. And that translates to all the people that are visiting us. Everybody that comes down here that says, you know what? Fort Myers Beach, they're serious about the water here. And we're going to keep coming back here. We're going to support it because we want clean water and we want a clean environment, and they're serious about it. Oh, what's adding one more word? You know, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing as far as I'm concerned. Oh, anyone else? If not, we'll go right ahead, madam.
I was just going to move that we reschedule ordinance 21-06 to the second reading and final adoption for November 1st with the changes as we have discussed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Roll call. Councilman Allers.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hasselfraz. Mayor Murphy, aye. Councilman Adderholt.
Aye.
Councilman Veach.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next item is unless anybody wants a 5-minute break, or you want to keep plowing ahead. Plow. Variance 2021-0063, which is 16 Pepita Street. This is to either approve with conditions or deny variance 2021-0063. This is a variance from table 34-3, 25 feet rear water body setback for a reduction of 8 feet 8 inches. Yes, sir.
Before we proceed, the remaining items listed under public hearing are all quasi judicial nature. There are 3 variances. So with your permission, we'll swear in the witnesses or anyone who's going to testify.
Right ahead. Anyone that's going to testify to any of these 3 variances coming up, please stand up and be sworn in. Raise your right hand.
Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Witnesses have been sworn, and before we proceed, it would be appropriate to disclose any ex parte communications any of the council members may have had with regard to item B, first item.
Councilman Veach.
None.
None here. Vice Mayor.
I've done drive-bys and I've spoken to a member of the LPA.
Councilman Allers.
I've done a boat by.
Oh, bye. Very nice. All right. Go right ahead, sir.
Morning,
Identify
everyone.
yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Town Council members. I'm Jim Bagulis. I'm the owner of 16 Pepita. I'm here joined with my wife Tracy and our architect, John Carsey from Studio One Design. We're here today seeking a setback variance request for 5 feet to construct a new single-family home. Variance is needed to build a single-family home on a unique lot, provide a nice uniform and feel of the neighborhood. Background, so my wife and I drove by the property, we fell in love with it. We decided to sell our home, move it into our apartment, and thinking that we were going to rebuild this property. After further evaluation, the decaying home was going past where we could actually make sense to remodel it. So we decided to demolish the property and at the same time, bring it into compliance of as much as the zoning as possible, as well as to rotate the home so it's a little bit more cul-de-sac facing. Just a little bit of what the house looked like. As you can see in the structure, first of all, the side setbacks were actually going into the side setbacks. We're about 7 feet on both sides, as well as the rear setback was going into the water body setback. It was under 25 feet. As you can see, the rotation of the home is in parallel with the property line on the left side, but not really facing the center of the cul-de-sac. So our challenge here is to build a single-family home within a unique property line. As you can see here in red, the cul-de-sac arch at the front of the property as well as the two sides, non-parallel side property lines, as well as the water body, which we have on two sides of the property. Makes it more of a challenge because of that unique characteristic to build a reasonable size single-family home. So we brought with, and first of all, take a moment to thank Carl and Jason for their support. We started this project, talking to them probably beginning of the year. Through that process, we originally had a front setback. So with the redesign of the front porch, we've actually redesigned the top second level porch, made that significantly smaller. We also had side setbacks. So we decided to make the floor plan a little bit smaller. So now that we're in compliance with the zoning on the left and the right for side setbacks. As you can see, we're still encroaching on that rear water body setback. So we brought this into the LPA, talking about where that red circle is, where we have the decking area and the staircase that was encroaching. But we were relieving all the other, with the work with Carl, we've relieved the front and side setbacks. So we went into the LPA on September 14th. And through that, it was a unanimous 5-1 pass with conditions of the following: to relocate the rear staircase, that it's not encroaching on that rear setback, to minimize the variance request from 8 feet down to 5 feet, and not to have the corner of the building exceed more than 5 feet, allowing for a roof overhang of 2 feet. So, after further review with our architect, we accepted the relocation of that and the recommendation of the LPA to relocate the staircase to the other side of the property. So what you have here, it's kind of busy, but just showing the living space in red, as of right now, does not encroach in any of the zoning setbacks. The blue is where we have the decking. So in the magnifying view, you could see how just that deck corner in the corner protrudes 5 feet into that water body setback. And that will be holding up the second floor roof. That now fits within all of the LPA's conditions. So we've accepted those. Just as a quick visual, this is what the house looks like. This is a kind of a beach house theme house. This is the front and left side elevation view. This is the rear and right side elevation view. As you can see, we have not updated the drawing, but the staircase would be moving from the left side to the right side of the house. 4 steps away from the kitchen, but we all need exercise, don't we? So just to run through this, just in interest of time, pretty quickly, from LDC section 3487, that there are not exceptions or extraordinary conditions or circumstances that are inherent to the property in question. So this property is uniquely shaped with the water body setback restrictions on 2 sides of the property. The request is not to extend any of the living space, but just for the outdoor porch and a post to hold up the roof. This allows for more of a uniform construction, as you saw from the elevation drawing, so that your deck space from the left to right looks uniform across the building. Also to allow us to rotate the house so it's a more cul-de-sac facing than the previous house that we had. That would provide more of a uniform look. That the conditions justify the variance are not the result of the actions of applicant taken after adoption of the regulation in question. So a majority, as you saw from the red line, the single family home is within all of the zoning setbacks. We've worked to minimize that as much as we could in the design, and from the front setback to the side setbacks. So we're just now encroaching on that one corner for that rear water body setback. That the variance granted is not the minimus variance, that we will relieve the applicant of unreasonable burden caused by the application of regulation in question to the property. The variance is from the requirements that restrict principal structure from encroaching the rear water body setback. This request is based on the preferred orientation of the home. The granting of the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to public welfare. Granting this variance will not be injurious to the surrounding properties or health, safety, welfare of the public. However, the proposed placement of the single-family home is more centered on the property, allowing us to optimize the view from the view corridor from the street to the water on both the left and right of the house. And then the rear encroachment will allow for that main level porch and roof, but minimizing any obstruction view because it's not a solid structure that's encroaching out. It's just a porch and a post. And then the conditions and circumstances on the specific piece of property for which the variances sought are not so general or recurrent in nature to make this reasonable, practical amend the regulation in question. Now, the variance request is not uncommon for cul-de-sac lot properties located on the island. The uniquenesses of the property layout, orientation on the cul-de-sac in that water body should be considered as a special circumstance and reviewed on an individual basis. Just to also show you a little bit more beyond that is just a little bit more research that I did. Found another property, 272 Miramar Street, where they had that same concern. They had a water body on two sides of the property, and that was brought in and approved for that front variance. Look and build that property today. And also talked to neighbors, Roger Barnes, who's on my left side, that's 18 Street. He has provided an email approval. Jack and Barbara from 10 Pepita Street, as well as Melissa Floyd, have provided verbal approvals. They did not see any fault in this request. That's all I have today for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, James.
Reviewing our recommendation here.
Questions for the applicant?
Have you received any letters about anyone opposed to it?
I have not personally.
To be clear, this is a custom design.
Yes, it is. I have been working on.
Was the architect instructed to fit within the setbacks?
We had the view of the property line, the site, and we have trying to maximize, but also rotate the house. And that's where, as an owner, I'm trying to make it sure that provides a more uniform feel when you drive down that cul-de-sac. So my instruction was to try to rotate as much as possible, but trying to do that in that uniquely shaped lot is our challenge, and that's why we're bringing that here today.
You and your wife are planning on living in the home?
Yes.
Very good.
For the next 40 years.
What's your vocation, James? What do you do for a living?
I'm in research development at Mars Wrigley.
You're very good on your feet. That's why. That's one of the better presentations I've seen by an applicant in a long time. I was curious. It looks like you've had experience doing this a little bit. Okay. No other questions? Thank you very much. Jeff.
Morning, Jason Green, Community Development.
Morning.
Wait for the presentation to come up. I guess you didn't want to answer what research and development. I guess it's a new candy bar or something. Is that what it was from Mars? Okay, yeah.
I was holding back on that.
We'll try to get that out of him later, I guess. As was mentioned, 16 Pepita Street, if I could say it. It was the application before you. The packet that you have before you mentioned also the 8 feet 8 inches, and as the applicant discussed, that request was reduced as discussions with LPA down to the 5 feet going on his site plan. Mentioned the applicant bought the property in 2020. It is a residential single family zoning district, and property was being used single family. The request formally is from the setback of 25 feet for water body setback from table 34-3. It was mentioned 8 foot 8 inches, but now 5 feet. As he was pointing out, the stairs were relocated, but you can still see the black area that's shaded there, showing that the corner, as far as the encroachment for 5 feet. As he also mentioned, the LPA recommended approval of their 5 foot change to that setback. Staff's recommendation to the LPA and to you was a recommendation of denial. That is a standard recommendation by us when it's custom built or newly built home, because they can design the home to meet within the setbacks. Based on the application, we just felt it didn't meet the requirements within 34-87 as the applicant showing you the different criteria. Minimus is not defined, but obviously up to a case-by-case evaluation. However, that number could be 6 inches, a foot. We just felt with it being a new design, it does not meet, should be able to meet the setbacks. As I mentioned, page 3 and 4 is the staff of the staff report had our recommendation, and as I said, for variance 2021-0063, I'm recommending to feet. Did include some conditions that the conditions that the LPA recommended, and I'd be happy to talk about those or any other be needed, or our recommendation for denial.
Questions for Mr. Green?
Jason, on that original drawing, the way the house is angled with the stairs that are still there, if you could go back a little bit, that one there. On the left side, opposite of that circle, what's the distance between the corner of that house and the side setback?
I don't know that you're talking about the dotted line and that
I
left
guess my
corner?
question is, if you were to rotate that, I know that's not ideal, but if you were to rotate that to be perfectly in line with that side setback, would that eliminate the need for the variance on the right?
Perhaps, I think what you'd just have to slide the home back probably, because that front right corner would then, there's a dotted line that you can see in the lower right. That front right corner might, if you rotate it, it might cross over that line. So the house totally would have to be rotated, then slid back probably to be within setbacks. That's what they were discussing, is the issue with view from the street, is what they're concerned with. So it'd be kind of rotated towards the neighboring property. It possibly could fit in there, yes. You're speaking, getting that building side more parallel with the.
I was just looking if there was a way, without having to take away anything that they want, other than being angled towards the cul-de-sac a little bit more, if there's a way to make what they would like to have fit within the current setbacks.
It's close. If you rotated that away from the cul-de-sac and towards the neighbor, you probably could fit within those boundaries, yes.
So others, I suspect that they're also trying to avoid having to come back in the future when they may want to try to save some room in that rear yard for a pool. So that may be why they kind of laid it out the way they did. Or also, when they went to do the pool, they'd be back here with a similar type of problem.
I guess that kind of leads into my question. That's what I was thinking all along. Are they going to then be coming back later and asking for even more encroachment because they need room to build a pool because they already built the house too big?
Obviously, that depends on the design of the pool, which is kind of our point, and staff's point as far as the design of the house. All those things can be, and you'll see in future things that we're going to talk about today, but all those things can be designed to fit the box that you're given.
We're seeing an awful lot of those pool things come in, though. There seems to be.
Yeah, the pool is, well, you're seeing two. You're seeing location because of corners, and then you're also seeing setback because of size, correct? Those two different, sometimes together.
And I don't have a problem with people who already have a house and they're trying to squeeze the pool in. I try to be, generous with that. But here we have a situation where the house isn't already there, and they come to us with a house that wasn't designed to fit in the space, which is larger than the average lot. It may be unusually shaped, but it's larger than the average lot on the beach. So I guess I'm hesitating for that reason, because then people come back and ask for room to put a pool and they want to encroach even more when we've already let them encroach with the house. So I don't know if that's something we want to consider as a condition, that if we give you this, then you don't get to come back and ask for an encroachment for a pool.
It seems like only fair, we don't know that they're going to come back for a pool, right?
It's a condition we could put on to.
I mean, the applicant's here. Is your intent to come back and ask for a pool later, or we might as well straighten that out?
The intent here is to fit everything else within the property we have today. You can see there's quite a bit on the rear part of that where those dotted lines are. I mean, we got like 15. We have a tree that's there too. So there's ample, we've measured it. You could put like a 20 by 14.
Then you wouldn't have any problem with the condition that says if we grant you this variance, you wouldn't be asking for a further variance for a pool.
Yes.
You'd be able to build a smaller pool already without the variance. Well, then we can add that.
You've also stated that this is just for a deck, right? That there's no living space in that 5.
Correct. To have it, be able to rotate that, and that's the whole point was, yes, just to rotate that property, so it's more cul-de-sac facing, as well as just to have it so that the uniform construction from left to right of the house, as you saw from the elevation.
Really, you're asking us to keep your symmetry in the house from the back. Both halves will look the same.
Yes, correct.
And the question for Jason, you said you had, if we approve this today, which I support it. First of all, I appreciate the applicant proactively reaching out to their neighbors and getting their neighbors, keeping them informed and getting them to sign on. But you said you had some, if we approve today, Jason, you had some advice in terms of dealing with de minimis issues like that. Did I hear you say that?
No, I was saying the land development code, the criteria for the variance talks about, is this a de minimis? And so generally, when we're dealing with new development, new construction, staff's opinion is it's not defined, is what I mean by that. It doesn't say 1 feet, 2 feet, 10% type of thing. So it's a judgment call on case by case, which you have to make that finding. So we generally don't find that to be a de minimis if you're designing it for, if it's a new development. If it was an existing and there's some issues with to create habitable space that was sufficient, those are some examples maybe. Usually new construction, we don't believe
Just
that
to be
it meets
clear,
de minimis.
Just to be clear, when it's new construction, clearly, project could be designed to avoid the situation. However, well, what I'm hearing from the applicants is that, they're dealing with a bunch of conflicting points and, to make project the way they would like it to be, and with some other things, they have this minor encroachment, but from a staff standpoint, we typically, if it's new construction, we're trying to send the message that you should try to fit within our area.
And I think that's fair. It does appear they went back to the drawing board and did try to fit as best they could. And you've got this de minimis corner here. I mean, the staff was right to push and encourage, but I do think they've made a good faith effort to try. Again, I do think this corner is de minimis, and Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve.
Public
comment,
comment,
sorry.
public comment.
Well, I'll hold back on that. Just,
We haven't had a discussion about it yet.
yeah, no, I just, for purposes of discussion, I was going to make a motion, but I'll wait till public hearing.
Appreciate your enthusiasm.
Just
All right.
trying to move things along, yeah.
If there's no other questions of staff, we'll open it to the public. Anyone wish to comment on this matter? Being none, we'll close the public comment. Now bring it back to the council. Any further discussion or motion?
Before you make a motion, I understand that, what the staff is saying is it's not really de minimis because this is a brand new design. It can make the design fit. I mean, an architect could make this fit. Now, they've come up with a certain shape that doesn't really fit with the lot very well, but that's their choice in the design of this property. And even though, to me, I look at it and say, well, it's 5 foot of deck. It's fairly trivial. I appreciate that they're going to, it's your dream home. You're going to move here. The neighbors say it's okay. But we have these rules in place for a reason. It's not just with these neighbors. It could be subsequent neighbors. We have an island full of houses that are non-conforming on lots because of our long history. But this is a new design. It just seems to me that it should be able to come up with a design that fits in the space they're allowed.
Yes, I'd have to say that was my initial inclination coming in, Bill. And I'd like to send that message out to folks. On the other hand, it appears that the LPA has already moved them back significantly in their conditions. But we only have, before we had 3 encroachments and now we're down to 1. Am I reading that correctly, Jason? Move the stairs.
Yeah, it reduced
So
encroachment
that
by
one's not-
over 3 feet, and they relocated the stairs to get it down to that number.
Well, I have to say that Bill, I agree with you in principle, but it appears the LPA has already moved them back significantly. And if they're willing to go along with the additional condition I'm suggesting, which would be that they can't come back for a variance for pools or other accessory structures. I'd be willing to allow them to encroach in one corner.
Now, that condition would stay with the property if it were to sell?
We could word it that way, John?
Further discussion?
I share some of the same issues that Counselor Veach has. You know, we've been talking a lot about size of the houses and restricting the size of the houses and a little taken back that the information either wasn't given or they didn't take it or chose not to listen to it, that this is the box that you get, you don't fit within it. Why that wasn't designed to fit within the box, I can't answer that. So I'm a little taken back by that, but as you said, Madam Vice Mayor, they did go through the LPA process, they did view it, they did move them back, and I'd be comfortable with seeing it move forward with the condition that you want to put in there.
Okay. Was there a motion to approve or deny or condition?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve variance number VAR 202-10063, including the conditions of the LPA as well as the vice mayor's proviso as well. Amended.
I'll second.
That in all other respects, the applicant meets the criteria in the code as set forth in the staff report.
Yes.
Yes.
John, just to clarify, I initially said pool, but I think it should be pool and any accessory structures.
Yeah, any other use that has to comply with the setbacks.
Thank you, because I know you'll be the one
It's
doing the writing.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Well, we're going to take a 10-minute break right here, please. The next item is variance 2021-0064, and that's for 3240 Shell Mountain Boulevard. This is to approve or approve with conditions or deny variance 2021-0064, a request to reduce the required accessory structure or pool setback from 2 feet in the rear and side yard, or from 5 to 4 feet in the rear or side yard. Everybody's been sworn in. John, has this one been publicized as well?
Yes, all three have been properly noticed. At this point in time, it would be appropriate to disclose any ex parte communications you've had with regard to the piece of property at 3240 Shell Mound Boulevard.
Councilman Allers, anything?
No.
Vice Mayor?
Drive-by and discussion with LPA member.
Nothing for me.
Nothing.
Councilman? Uh, Okay, we'll go to the applicant. Yes, sir.
Morning, my name is Armin McCormick. My wife and I own 3240 Shell Mountain Boulevard. We bought it last year, December, and we're looking to put a pool. And we started the process in January or February. Looking for the variance. In the backyard, we have, well, an eucalyptus and the front shell mound. There was the potential of maybe throwing a pool in the front. We decided we didn't want that, and we chose the back, the patio, which is kind of a smaller square back there behind the garage and to the side of the house, which would be the the southwest corner of the property. And when we put it in, the pool place we were using, they had us really close to the house, and I didn't want to go to. It was 2 feet from the house and 2 feet from the garage. And so I wanted to push it back so that we had 4 to 5 feet from the house and 3 to 4 feet from the garage. There was room to walk around the pool. I guess that was where we were asking for the variance, so we could get it away from the house and the garage and have room to walk comfortably around the pool, and push it closer to the property line.
Any questions for applicant?
That corner there, that southwest corner, is that still, I'm pretty familiar with this property. Is that corner still pretty heavily vegetated back there? There was a fence back there, I think, at one time. I don't know if it's still.
We have a fence. It's got to be torn out. It's wood. And then there's some chain link fence to be on the south. Wood, there's another wood dividing the two properties on the west side. They had just put a pool in as well. But as far as vegetation, no. I guess, yeah, I would say the south house would be on the south corner there. Is that Madison? Madison and Mound. He's got a lot of trees there, yes.
Are your neighbors aware of the application and are they supportive?
I have not talked to the one neighbor. The other two didn't seem to have any problems with it. Tried to get a hold of one, but I wasn't able to get.
Did you consider making a smaller pool to get the space you need?
Yes, we've looked at a smaller pool, and we feel like if we're gonna make it it would be 3 feet smaller on each side, and we'd probably just forego it and not do it.
Any other questions for Mr. McCormick? Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Jeff.
Morning, Jason Green, Community Development. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, 3240 Shell Mountain Road. The applicant bought the property in 2021. Sure was built in 59, and there's permit records from 01 and 18. It is a residential family home. And the applicant is seeking the variance from 341174 D1, which is to allow the pool side and rear setback reduction of 3 feet, result in a setback of 2 feet. As out of the site, the blue box being behind the structure towards the rear of the property. It's a corner lot Also, that rear corner shares a property line with multiple properties. I believe there's 3 that they're at that corner. Again, reduction from this back required under 34-3. The LPA recommendation can be for the staff report. The LPA commented that they didn't feel comfortable with such a small setback, so they made a recommendation, 1-foot encroachment, variance of 1 foot for a 4-foot setback. Recommendation, or that motion passed 5-0. And they created some conditions, recommended conditions. Staff's finding.
Wait,
page-
hold on one
I'm sorry.
second, excuse me.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
So they went from 5 to 4, the LPA?
From a 3-foot variance to a 1-foot variance.
3 to
Their
1.
their
okay.
recommendation was a 1 foot, so a setback of 4 feet.
Gotcha, okay. Sorry about that.
No, sorry. It's confusing when how much you're varying versus what the setback will
You
be.
talk so darn fast, it's hard to
Okay.
hear you.
The findings on page 3 in the staff report. Recommendation on page 4. Our recommendation was denial, to the point made earlier that they could design the pool to fit the setback. It is a 5-foot setback in both those side and rear property lines. Our recommendation for variance and the LPA's recommendation would be recommendation of denial. Sorry. Back to the site plan.
Jason, with that pool right there, will they run into any issues going through the design phase of it with drainage?
They could. That was asked at the LPA. I don't have topography on the survey that I could see, so potentially they could. I believe the size of it would require a drainage plan for the whole site. But the drainage itself, if you put in drainage, swales or ponds, they don't fix everything, right? Sometimes they can create an issue. I don't know the topography of the site, so there potentially could be. We always try to encourage it to be put in the ground flat, not any fill. Don't know which way it flows now, so that would be one thing we'll have to look at.
Listen, I can't see on the plans where the pool pump is going to go. Do you know that?
I don't know that, but they could, if you're familiar with the codes, there's an encroachment into the rear yard that's allowed of up to 2 feet for the pool pumps. So they could be even closer to the property line in that back. I don't know where they're planning to do it. We have not seen design plans for this.
I guess if we go with that, if we go with this, that's one thing I'd like to consider is that, because it's one thing to encroach upon your neighbors just visually. It's another thing with noise. Pool pump's going to be closer to the neighbors.
Pools themselves, particularly if it's a vacation rental, it can be very loud just with the activity, let alone the.
Could I ask the applicant just a couple quick questions?
I'll come back up.
Just 2 quick questions. Number one, is this your primary residence?
Say that again,
Is
sir?
this your primary residence?
No, sir. Nope.
Are you comfortable with the conditions that the LPA put on property?
The 1 foot?
Yes.
We're comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Done with Jason? Anybody have any more questions for Mr.?
If I could, Vice Mayor's question about the pool pump. So the pool pump, pool equipment has to meet the side yard back of the principal structure. Allowance for additional encroachment into the rear yard. So for the purposes of this, we were considering the property line on the right to be side yard and the property line to the bottom to be the rear yard. So on the side to the right, it would have to meet the principal structure setback, but on the bottom to the south, it could be closer, I think is what you're concerned with.
So, yeah, that
Located.
if we go that direction, then I guess I'd want to add another condition for designating where the pump would go.
So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I just want to make sure you heard the applicant's comment. He said he wanted to move the pool away from the house and away from the garage, which is creating the need for the setback. That he would have a 5-foot walkway, if I heard him correctly, separation. House and or the garage. So we could theoretically push it back towards the house and garage without changing the size of the pool and not need the setback, if that's the direction you would like to consider.
What is this, what is the size of this pool?
It's kind of awkwardly shaped. It's like 15 by 11.
Seems so much bigger than that when it's, looking at the blue square up there.
Right. It's a pretty small, there's a hot tub back there right now that's 5 by 5. Takes up a lot of the area in the back, yeah.
Looks bigger than the garage.
Yeah.
The garage is 15 by 24.
You can see the house, I think that's 24, is that right? 24 on the width of the house that's abutting to, so. Perhaps a specific size would be helpful.
It's like, shows as a rectangle, but if you can see how it's like 15, 17, and 11. Makes sense, so 15.
I'm just going visually, it looks bigger than your garage, and your garage says 24 feet, so
Yeah, that's definitely not to scale. It would be, I think that what's the width of the garage right there, 15 feet? That's the width of the pool.
I'm looking at the other direction. The garage is 24.
Oh, you're looking at the length of the garage?
Yeah,
It's not,
it looks bigger than the garage.
yeah, I wouldn't call that to scale personally, but like I said, it's not a rectangle. The pool is not gonna be rectangular either.
Kidney shaped?
Not kidney, it's,
A rhombus.
Trapezoid kind of.
long, short, longer, yeah, almost triangular.
Well, then the drawing here isn't accurate, representative of what's going in at all.
Would have been helpful, but,
I mean, I've got it on my cell phone.
I mean, if he's got it on his cell phone, can we put it in the viewer here? Will that work?
Try it up here too, but.
I was just thinking you could put it on
Well, we could put it on
screen
here if we
without
get a
printing it,
printout.
maybe. Didn't know if it would show very well being a lighted phone, whether it would show. Gotcha.
Here.
No, just bring it up. We've got a
We're
thing
gonna
we
try to see
can,
if we can project
we
it
might be
first.
able to project it. Okay.
Bring up lane.
Would be easier for you
Well,
to
there's a
print it,
backup
that's
plan.
fine.
We can backup plan.
Yeah. I forgot about our staffing issues today. I apologize for making the suggestion.
You want to just mail it to me, might be faster. It's coming.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
You gotta move it back a little further.
Right there.
Yeah, it's like backwards, upside down mirror thing going on there.
I don't think that's going to work. It's too much glare.
watch.
Just Amy, AMY. OV.
Just email it to all of us and we can just pull it up on our phones here and.
I'll send it to you as soon as it comes through. Like to take just a little bit to get through our firewall, so.
But you have them emailing the council?
Sending it to me, I'll send it to you.
That way it's preserved for public record.
Yeah.
Just to get through our fire.
Before waiting, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a quick question to the applicant?
Sure.
You had conversations with the pool company about potential issues with drainage, like I mentioned with, I'd hate for you to go for this entire process for them to tell you can't do it because the drainage is gonna be a problem.
She's had conversation.
So, I mean, it was my understanding
Paul,
that if it's,
Identify yourself for the record.
McCormick, right?
McCormick, thank you.
It
Go
was my
ahead.
understanding that if the pool is less than 500 square, then it has to be more than 500 square feet.
Yeah, just don't want them to have to go through all this.
She's correct, and the code says if it's 500 square feet or more, or greater, then you have to do a drainage plan for the entire site. But that doesn't necessarily mean we don't look for drainage issues, to your point, I think. In that if somebody was gonna bring in 2 feet of fill to raise that pool up, we would have concerns about that. So while it's not necessarily a drainage plan that's required, we want to make sure there's no pounding water on a neighbor, or something like that. So it's not specific to the 500 square foot. We look for that type of stuff just to make sure there's no. We always try to condition these to be at grade, flat, so we can avoid. Again, to your point, I don't know what the topography is. I don't know if that's the low area. I don't know if that's the high area. I don't know.
I just get worried sometimes when you talk about raising pools up. You know, we look across the street every day during the rainy season. We call Lake Avenida, you know, because the pool got raised and everybody's yards are flooded now every rainy season.
So the drainage plan part helps, but it doesn't solve all the issues that types of projects can cause. Correct.
Well, and just clearly from a common sense perspective, clearly the closer it is to your neighbors, the more of a chance they're gonna be impacted than if it was further away.
I've had a similar experience at a house we had where someone put in a pool and didn't raise it very much. It worked as a dam. Our yard from draining.
Attachment won't email, but Dan has it. We're just gonna pass my phone around.
Technology.
It's a 3-foot walkway around between the house and the pool, not a 5-foot. What it looks like on the picture here.
You have to go to the microphone.
You have to step up to the mic.
You have to step to the mic.
That's correct. It's 3 foot on the house and 2 feet on the garage. Without the variance.
Garage here, corner. By the house, and this is the.
Oh, that's the
It's a
pool.
5-foot setback.
I got it. This is the corner.
Just for the record, in case anybody couldn't tell what we were saying, we were trying to lay out where the house was and the house and the property
And
line.
it still doesn't have any dimensions on it.
The house just shows 24 and then there's
Lose it.
I have it.
4
Can't believe the
squares.
set of stuff you have on your phone. No, I'm just kidding.
Side's 18 by 15, and then the west corner would be 11. The step side is the 18-foot side, and North side would be 11 side.
That's the side furthest away from the house.
Correct.
It looks like with this, the pool basically takes up all the space inside the 5-foot setback according to this drawing. 2 feet away from the house and 2 feet away from. This drawing doesn't need a variance.
Correct.
Really not what you're proposing.
Well, what I'm proposing is to get it away from the house to a minimum of 5 feet from the house and 5 feet from the garage.
But this is not really what, proposing. This is what you started with, and then you move this closer to the property line.
Right, correct. So that there would be room around the garage and the house.
You're not enlarging the pool, you're just shifting.
No, I'm just shifting it.
The pool's
I
staying
don't-
the same, just the walkway is getting bigger.
I don't feel that 3 feet from the house is far enough from the house is essentially what.
I'm diving off the deck into the pool.
There is a door that goes from the house. There's a door that would go directly into the pool. Then if you were to open the door, it would be almost on the pool if we were to.
And are there any ADA requirements for a pool as far as how far it needs to be from a house?
Yes, sir. Well,
Private residence.
not that I'm necessarily aware of, and it's not a criteria for necessarily consideration by the council and granting the variance.
There may be a building code requirement. I don't,
Yeah, so maybe.
a building code requirement, Jimmy?
Not that we're aware, I think it's exempt because of the single-family nature of it, but we could check that. We've been generally dealing with, there's an interpretation done a couple years ago about a minimum of 10 inches from the edge of water and out surrounding a pool, calling that basically the footprint of the pool. Everything beyond that is a paver or a deck or some other structure. So 18 inches was based on my understanding from the building department that was a for safety kind of grab area. So obviously, most people want more than 18 inches. Then they add pavers around that.
Jason, what page is the LPA recommendation on? I've lost it.
5 of the staff report. Let's see. Page 4. We added in the staff report there. Let me flip. For the conditions, I believe.
That's 224.
24. Yeah.
Recommended conditions, it doesn't say those are from the LPA, though. Those are the ones from the LPA?
Yes, I believe so, because our recommendation was denial.
Any final questions of Mr. Green? Thank you, sir. Bring it back to the council. Any further discussion, or does anybody wish to make a motion with any further conditions or lesser conditions or?
Make a motion to approve variance 202-10064 with the conditions put in by the LPA. Have to add your part there, John, at the end of that?
That it meets, it's consistent with the criteria for the granting of the approval as reflected in the staff report and that.
Exactly what John said.
So the clarification, is that for the applicant's request or the LPA recommendation?
LPA.
And before I would second, I guess I would have to say, do you want to add anything about the pool pump?
Oh, yes, okay, well. I don't necessarily need to, no. I would assume that they want to put it in a place that's good for everyone, but if you think it's necessary, I would be willing to. Do you have a place in particular?
I just say that it not be in the area where they're encroaching upon the neighbors. It should be up closer to their house than it is to their neighbor's house.
So you're talking behind the house there? Their house
I guess there's more than one place it could go, but I just don't want them putting it closer to their neighbor because they've go even closer to their neighbor with the pool. I mean, we really don't have a good drawing to know exactly where it is, so I can't say where I want to put it, so.
Make a suggestion perhaps?
Yes.
The house and garage side of the pool is where it shall be located.
That would be a good way of saying it.
For the record, let me, to the extent of the, I apologize, to the extent of the motion, as presented here by the applicant, because staff report actually recommends denial. I mentioned in staff report, so you may want to amend the motion to reflect the applicant has carried their burden of showing compliance with all the criteria.
Would you like me to start over?
No, as long as that's reflected, that we make reference to the staff report, because the staff report is recommending denial.
And I guess I will amend my motion to say that the pool equipment no longer cannot encroach any more into the side or rear setbacks. Is that the best way to say it?
Well, Jason had suggested that pool equipment have to be near the garage or house.
Near the garage or house, but
It has to be garage or house side of the pool, as opposed to being property line side of the pool.
oh, I got it. Okay.
Okay, I mean, listen, honestly, the AC is, I think you told me, is on the west side of the house, so you've got a lot of equipment and power and stuff you gotta get from there, so it probably makes sense. Garage or house side of the pool.
I will amend the motion to say that the pool equipment should be on the pool or the house or the garage side pool.
And I'll second,
Okay,
with the LPA conditions.
moving second. Discussion?
I'll say that I'm not in favor of this, and I think that there's a couple of reasons. One is I don't feel like they made the same kind of effort to get written improvement from the neighbors that we've seen in previous times. I also think that it doesn't seem like the plan is really consistent with what they want to do. So I don't really, it's like the applicant is not really very well prepared at what they're trying to ask for. I also think that talking about a foot and this being bound by the house and the garage is going to be very loud in a vacation rental. And I don't know if the neighbors really understand what's going to go in, how it will affect them. I don't know if that's really been properly vetted through the neighbors.
In principle, I agree with you, Mr. Veach, but you could build a pool anyway that's going to be just as loud. Can't stop them from building the pool.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-1 with Councilman Veach dissenting. Okay. That's that. We're gonna move, go out of, no, we're gonna
One more
finish,
variance.
we'll finish this up. Okay. The next item is D, the variance 2021-0066, which is 4969 Estero Boulevard, accessory structure in front of a principal structure. This is to allow an accessory structure, a pool, in front of a principal structure. Sir, you're the applicant. Come on up.
Morning, everyone. My name
Morning.
is
Say it again.
Armando Barba.
Armando, buenos dias.
My wife and I purchased the property in January of this year, and we'd like to put in a pool. Technically, it's not in the front of the property, it's on the side, because our home doesn't face Estero, it faces Madera. No, the property, the address is Estero, and that's basically why we're here.
It's the first building when you're going into Madera on the left, the Barker? Barter's, Bob Barter's home, yes. Okay. Questions?
So your property is on Madeira and Estero, and the front of the house is considered Madeira? Yeah. And so the pool is actually going to go in the side yard then along Estero? I said Jason.
Or is this your primary residence? Have you had any conversations with your neighbors?
I have not.
But when you say that, I mean, I always ask that question too. You know, I used to always ask that question whether the neighbors objected or not, but people do get busy. But they're always posted, are they not? That there's a variance hearing coming up, and so so the neighborhood has the opportunity to involve if they wish. I want to make that clear. Any questions for Armando? Okay, thank you, sir. We'll listen to the staff.
Good morning again, Jason Green, Community Development, 4969 Estero Boulevard. Variance from the location of the pool is being sought, not the setbacks on this one. The applicant bought the property in 2021. It was built in 1982. The history on it has permits in 02, 04, 21. The residential single-family structure. And again, the variance being requested is from 341174B, which is to allow the pool forward out of this principal structure. As if you look on the site plan, it's approximately 30 feet proposed to be set back, so it does meet the setback requirements. But again, to your conversation earlier, both of those right away are front yards by our code. In order to have it on what he's calling the side, we treat it as a front yard. You have to have a variance from this section. Again, it's not a setback variance, it's just a location criteria variance. As was mentioned, the pool, Boulevard, it's outside of the setback, but in what we call the front yard, or street yard, I should say. And the pool is 19 feet from neighbor on the behind, 28 feet from Madera, and proposed 30 feet from Estero. Included that measurement in the proposed resolution to be the 30 feet, just so that it's developed as depicted on your plan. LPA recommendation is on page 4 of your staff report. Motion approved 5-0 to recommend approval, variance from the location, and with the staff conditions. Staff findings are on page 3 and 4 of the staff report. Recommendation on 4. Staff recommend approval with the conditions for variance 2021-0066. Allow the pool to be forward of the principal structure.
Questions for Mr. Green? Oh, I'm sorry, you're not done.
I'm done, sorry.
Okay.
Jason, one of your conditions is a request for a type B buffer. Is that going to cause a sightline problem for people turning onto
No,
or turning
because
off of?
the buffer will have to comply with site visibility triangle. So anytime we do a condition like that, it also has to comply with the other requirements.
Okay.
Which is that intersection has to have visibility.
Question? Further questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Further discussion, or is there a motion?
I guess I'd just like to say, I also did a drive-by on this property.
I did not ask for that, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Ex parte.
Plus, we need to have public hearing.
Oh, wow. Being punchy here. Okay, is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment? Hearing none, we'll close. And any ex parte communications?
Drive-by.
I already said
You
drive-by.
said you're
Drive by.
drive by it every day, but anyhow, I never really took notice, but okay. Now, bring it back. Further discussion, or is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve variance 202-10066, the staff recommended conditions.
Second that.
And it meets the criteria in the code for the granting of the variance.
You write that down.
Done it here today.
I think we all need a little card that says that, like.
I can provide those, if the.
Please do.
I just put it in the notes, that'd be
Cool.
great. Yep.
All right, you can tape it up here. Okay. It's been moved and second. Any further discussion?
I would just say, Mr. Mayor, just about your point about, we do publicly notice these things, but I'm sort of old school. I just think it's nice neighbors to talk to your neighbors, just walk around, knock on the door and let people know what you're thinking about, get some input. Again, I'm maybe old fashioned, but I just think that's a nice way to proceed and can always be helpful down the road. So, but anyways, just thought I'd say that. But
No, I agree with you. Okay, any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously.
I think we have to roll call it.
Oh, roll call, I'm sorry, yes. Councilman Allers.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Okay, now, the people that are here in the audience and so forth and so on, we're going to, on the administrative agenda to item F, and that is to allocate and appropriate funds and approve the supplemental task authorization number 1 in the not-to-exceed amount of $212,000 for design and permitting of the Estero Island Shoreline Protection Project.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
the
sir.
item itself is, in terms of the town's expenditure, is roughly $36,000, but because we know you all are so concerned and interested in our beach and its renourishment, we do have a consultant here in case you have any questions about the project or wish to be reminded about the project scope and how it's going to be moving forward. If you'd like, we could just bring Mike up to the podium real quick and just give you 2 or 3 minutes.
That'd be great.
Good morning. For the record, Michael Poff, Coastal Engineering Consultants. Thank you, Roger, for the introduction. When we were selected for the project, we broke the scope into 2 phases over 2 fiscal years. What you have before you is the second phase of the design and permitting, which is effective starting now in October in your new fiscal year. So when Chad and Roger and I sat down and laid out the map for the design and permitting, as I said, we broke it into these 2 phases. But from a holistic standpoint, we did have a pre-application meeting with the Department of Environmental Protection and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, also the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Marine Fisheries, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We had all the agencies on the Zoom call and it went very, very well. I have a presentation, but I know it was in your packets. I'm happy to talk for an hour and a half. I'm happy to talk for 3 minutes. So you challenged us to come back with a comprehensive management plan for all of the island, not just restoring the north end like that was done in 2011. So we've put together a plan that goes along the island to look at all of your designated critically eroding areas, even those that aren't designated critically eroding, that we may be able to get those deemed critically eroding by the state. So we have the bar area that's in the ebb shoal of the inlet that was used in 2011. Still has about 1 million yards of sand available for the project. We used a sophisticated modeling system to look at what's called the storm damage reduction benefit, which is how wide and how high should the beach be in order to provide the protection when the hurricane hits. And so we've put together those design templates. And we've also done an analysis of the background erosion rates on the island so that over the next 10 years, after the project is done, you will continue to have that level of storm protection. The 2011 project has performed very well. It has succeeded in providing that storm damage reduction benefit as well as the recreational benefits and habitat for sea turtle nesting and for shorebird usage. So we're basically carrying what was done before as a very successful project and planning on that for the future for your next renourishment. Everything goes smoothly according to plan with no hiccups. Goal will be to submit our application this November on your behalf to the agencies. About a 15-month permitting process. We would line ourselves up for an early 2023 construction project. 2 things that we have to work out with the agencies are ownership of the critical wildlife area on the southern end as to who owns that. If it's state-owned land, it really helps your cost sharing because it'll be 100% state cost sharing for the south end. If it's not, then that will reduce state share, which will increase the local share. Working with the Division of State Lands, the FWC, and the permit regulatory authorities with the state to try to figure that out on your behalf. There's a funding application in
You don't
front
know
of the
what the
state.
reduction, you don't know what the reduction would be from.
Do not, but part of this work order will be to figure that out for you. Because the state, when Chad did his due diligence on your behalf before you hired us, the people at the state went through the records and said, this is 100% state-owned, and so we didn't spend your money looking at that. Now that that's in question, there's a task for us to help you analyze the public access on the south end. So we'll come back to you probably in the next 2 months or less with what that might be. We know what the worst case scenario is for this funding. Second thing will be is, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So it's the designation of the south end. All right, come back to me.
Let me, while you think about that, let me ask you something. What would be our exposure to the town, just ballpark, dollar-wise, if the town or the state did not own that critical wildlife area and we had to pick up the extra portion of it? What would our exposure be on that? Just ballpark, $500,000, million?
Cost for the south end is a substantial number because it's been a very eroded area. We have about $6 to $7 million for the south end. So if the state, let's say the car share would drop to 50%, and it might be $3.5 million plus or minus. Again, I don't have those numbers. We need to do the public access criteria.
To the town, to the town.
That would be correct.
That's if
It's
the
a
town,
substantial amount of money.
if the town did not have ownership of that, or the
state does
did
not have
have
ownership.
ownership of that, yeah.
That is correct.
If the state were to maintain ownership of it, our portion would be substantially less than that.
If it's deemed state-owned land,
Yes.
then it would be 100% paid for by the state for that south section. That's correct.
If it was deemed privately owned, those private owners decided to claim it back to the state, then it would be owned by the state, not?
I'm going to defer
Maybe
to,
that, I'll
defer
ask
to
the
your attorney on that one.
They quit, if they convey it back to the state, yes, it would be owned by the state.
Well, that's a further incentive to settle this thing. Okay, go on. Just an aside that I had come across my mind.
Sure. Well, I guess, and the second thing really is then the funding of it. So let's say that the state, not owned by the state, and it's a substantial amount of money. I haven't talked about this yet, but you could put together some kind of funding program that would seek funding from the residents as well as town funds, and then the local DC funds that you've applied for from Lee County as well. If you wanted to do a funding matrix, we have talent within our team to help put that together. For example, a municipal services benefit unit, some kind of U or TU that would look at the benefit of the beach program in terms of recreational and storm damage reduction benefit.
You touched on the timeframe of starting, and it's in our packet, but just so that the people know, could you give an idea of how long, assuming it starts in the spring of 2023, how long the entire project would take?
This is a 5-month to 6-month construction project. So with that said, what we've done is in your packet with our new work order is to locate a second pipeline corridor that would bring sand from the bar area directly to the south end. That way we don't have the pipeline on the beach in this one area having the pipeline there for the entire project. So the contractor would lay the first pipeline, lay the sand out on, say, half of the beach, pick the pipeline up, he'd put it in the second corridor, and then do the other half of the project that way. The disturbance to any given property will hopefully be less than 3 months.
The other consideration is that to help our funding partners to help us in terms of when we need the construction funding to bridge their fiscal years, so that they don't have to take the whole hit for the project in one fiscal year.
The other thing to look at would be is we're going to permit this for a 15-year period, initial construction plus multiple nourishment events. And so if for some reason funding becomes constraint, you could theoretically, within the 15 years, build part of the project in the most needy areas and come back in some future event and do a second event if that would be but the mobilization cost for the equipment is very expensive. So that's one thing that we'll have to look at together with you is if we try to do something phasing, the mob demob costs involved in the project are millions and millions of dollars. So
If I could, first of all, Mike, I want to commend you, the town manager, and Chad and the town staff. You guys have done an excellent job of tackling a very complex issue and putting forth a plan that's very viable for our island. So just want to thank you for your efforts. Just want to better understand, just again, for the folks watching, sounds like the renourishment will formally begin in early 2023. So, and you said the south end potentially could cost $6 to $7 million. Does that mean the north end would be roughly the same amount? So the aggregate cost of the project potentially 12 to 14 million? Is that fair?
actually, the south end we talk about is very localized from around the critical wildlife area. It's only about 4,000 feet of shoreline. So the total project cost is around $23 million. If we were to do everything, the Cadillac project, you put all of the advanced nourishment, all of the extra storm protection, all of the extra sand to last that full 10-year period. So then the north and central would be 16 million and the south end would be the 7 million. And those are round figures.
And some of that is, and I'd yield to the vice mayor, because I think it'll be wonderful. Your timing to be back on the TDIC will be perfect by then, because you'll be back on, I think. Is some of that money already been appropriated for that first phase on the north end, or are we still, is it premature?
They only appropriated money for planning, not actual placement.
Okay.
But DC funds are up substantially. So the money should be there.
Excellent. That's helpful. Thank you.
Welcome.
And just as a side, Counselor, I sent a email to the county manager just to make sure that he knows that significant progress is underway, or that he's communicating with his TDC and other staff to be sure that they could see this
Could be
train
ready.
coming in their direction.
Very good. Thank you.
An item has come back to me now, which is the construction window. The critical wildlife area is a huge shorebird nesting area. So there may be constraints on timing when we can construct the south end. So that could affect the timing of when we build in 2023. We won't have to work out.
Okay. Questions for Mike?
With your presentation.
Let's
Well,
see.
they've been kind of flipping it on as we've been going, so.
And Mike,
this-
before you sit down, you said 23 million aggregate. So, and I'm sorry, you said 6 to 7 on the south end. And what did you say the north end was? Ballpark? I know it was ballpark, but
Then we have lumped the north and central sections together. That would be the 16 million. That'd be the difference.
thank you.
And,
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
but I was going to talk about what's in the presentation, but if you're going, then I'll.
I can go with the slides. So this is breaking the beach into the different areas on the shoreline. Designated critically eroding is a state definition. If it's not critically eroding, then you don't get any state funding. There's a gap between the 3,000 feet north of the critical wildlife area. Does that allow me to advance it?
Yes, sir.
So just north of the critical wildlife area, it's been historically accretional, but now in the last 7 to 8 years, it has started to erode. We've talked to the state about closing the gap, so to speak, and having the entire beach designated critically eroding, and they're supportive of that endeavor, which will allow us to do state funding within that section, that small section that right now would be ineligible.
So you're saying the southern tip is no longer accreting? It's now starting to erode again?
North of the critical wildlife area, different spot.
Tip, not the tip.
Just
So the area by the Wyndham, the area that's raked.
The,
It's halfway to Marco Island. but-
let me get the gap here. Let me show you. Okay, so when we talk about the north end, so this is, the original fill limits went from the terminal groin to about 1,000 feet south of the pier. That's what we affectionately call the north end. That would be repeating the project from 2011. But you said, let's do a comprehensive plan. We continued and looked at the central section. Central section has been benefiting from all of the nearshore placement of the Matanzas Pass dredging that the Corps of Engineers does. It's very low in elevation, so we still recommend adding sand in this area to bring elevation up for that storm damage reduction benefit. Here's the central section. We end the beach fill, what's that street name right down there? Narc. That's where the erosion control line ends, which is where the designated critically eroding limits end. So for now, the beach fill ends at that point, but you know that there is this area. So this is the area we're talking about that had a lot of accretion, but now it's starting to erode, and it's also very low lying. There's like a pond area. So what we'd like to do is fill in the pond. So that would bring sand from the bar area to create a very gentle slope. Get rid of the ponding area. It'll be good for storm protection, good for recreation, good for all of the species that do the nesting out there.
Just a point, because this area is also an area that is regularly raked. And a lot of times those areas that are raked and don't have any vegetation, that'll hunting. So it's something the town would pay for, and it is partially the result of the property owner's actions.
The decision for you all to consider. Right now, our focus is getting it designated critically eroding, but we can at least get the state car share if you choose to go ahead and pursue it. Moving forward, so this is the critical wildlife area. So this is the area that we want to build the storm protection beach. And this is the area that right now, of course, is in question as to the ownership.
And you use the term build the storm protection beach or rebuild? Is that, I don't mean to be picky, I'm just trying to understand.
Sure, no, it's a great question. So here is right at, this is like Leonardo de Arms area. And so, is there a pointer on here? The button maybe? On a button? There we go. All right. And so the existing profile is this red line. There's little to no dry beach in this area. So the storm protection beach is gone. And so we want to build this blue line, which is about 100-foot wide beach, plus add this additional sand for the renourishment and advanced nourishment of the project. We run these models that show what would a storm do if you didn't have any, we didn't do any beach sand. If a big 25-year storm event, so like a category 2 or 3 hurricane were to hit, would probably have a whole bunch of erosion. It could potentially scour up to the building, even underneath the building. It's a catastrophic event. So by putting this extra sand, we provide that level of storm protection. In fact, we even proposed to go a little bit wider, that we don't even have undermining of the parking lot. This is a pretty wide beach. So in this instance, here we're rebuilding storm protection beach, because in this area it has eroded really back. You can even start to see the scarp. You can get into some of the, it looks like it might even be underneath the asphalt of the parking area right now.
It's a great slide. And with your pointer, could you point to Leonardo Arms again? Just where it is on the graph?
That's in this area right here.
But not necessarily the picture to the left or the graph to the left. Can
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the building footprint extends to here.
Okay.
On the north and central sections, we're rebuilding. On the south side, are constructing it because it has completely eroded away. Many places in the north and central section are just going to get some extra elevation and then a little bit of extra width. So each property is going to get a different amount of sand in order to provide the uniform level of protection. It's based on how the existing conditions are at the time of construction. That's what the beach looks like on the south end. There's another non-critical erosion area at the very, very south end. So this is the area that's still accreting. Somebody asked the question. This is all still accretional. So Chad's been talking with the stakeholders and with the agencies about what could be done in this area in terms of filling this low-lying area. You take the accretional sand and move it landward. That's one option that's been done in multiple municipalities. Bring sand in. So there's options there. But right now, this will not get changed to designated critically eroding because it's very accretional. It's like plus 10 to plus 12 feet per year on average. The state's not going to deem it critically eroding, so it would be 100% local funds or private funds.
That has a similar profile to what you were looking at earlier, where dune by the water's edge is higher, and then elevation goes down as you go in.
That's correct. And it's actually very common on Southwest Florida beaches. We see it a lot. Rhode Island, here, it's up in Charlotte County, so it's because of our coarse grain sediment and our low wave climate, that coarser material sits right at the water line and builds up higher than the back beach. And so you get this ponding, certainly raking it to the ponding, the lying area as well. We've seen that. But if you don't rake, then you're going to have potentially other problems too. So
I've seen this area, though, one thing that's a little different than this and the other areas. The other area seems to pond when you get rain events. This area during high tides flows in from the Gulf, and as you connect to the lagoon.
it definitely gets lower lying as you move further to the south, for sure.
A little aside about that. All of those homes from the end of the island, Island's End, Carlos Point, and then the condo there, and all the single-family homes north of that were all seawalled. Everyone had a seawall out in front of their home,
back in here.
behind their homes. Yes, Castle Beach is the condo. They're all seawalled. I used to walk up that beach, and on a low tide, there was probably 10 feet in front of that seawall. The high tide, of course, it was lapping up against the seawalls. So there was no beach there. And when we built Island's End down in the south end, we were concerned that there was so little beach there, we were concerned that we'd have a hard time selling the units. And now you need a shuttle to get out to the beach from there. It's amazing what it does over time.
Sure. Well, Little Stare Island was an island, if you recall.
Yes,
not
I
too
do.
long ago. And so
Yes.
obviously, once it attached, all that sand became a sand source to feed this beach. So
It's constantly changing. It's dynamic.
it's about the one thing I can guarantee you, tomorrow the beach will be different than it is today.
Exactly. You're right, Mike. All right.
I could just have a couple more slides. Bar area. There are some anomalies that they could not identify. We're going to repeat some of the surveys. They were magnetic anomalies. So these are avoidance areas in the bar area. Our team, we're going to rerun that survey now, 16 years later from the original, just to see if any of that debris is still there.
Magnetic anomaly, so that means the material is not suitable for.
Exactly. Or it could be some kind of cultural resource. Like there's any pirate ships or gold doubloons down there, but archaeologists who do the surveys, if they can't identify it, then they have to put a buffer around it. So these are buffer areas that we currently won't be able to dredge. Now, if we run the survey and those anomalies are gone, that means there was some kind of modern debris, maybe debris from, actually from a storm event or something fell off a barge or something and is just sitting in the sand, and maybe Mother Nature's moved it on. So.
A lot of stuff buried down there over the years.
Spanish galleon or two would help pay for the.
Here are the critical sections. I can just go through this stuff. So we talked about different corridors, and so mapped from the bar area directly to the beach. That's what they used in 2011. Talking with Chad and Roger, we decided to go ahead and do the south end. That way they can direct access to the south part. So they'll lay this pipe, build a chunk of beach, and they'll lay this pipe, build. So that way we're not on anyone's beach for the whole length of the project.
Tarpon fishermen will have to be careful at that time of year with all that pipe out there.
There's the corridor.
How's the borrow area selected? Because it's the same borrow area we've been using for different.
It was the one that was used in 2011 for the design of the original project, and it was designed for multiple projects.
Okay.
We're just taking advantage of the fact that it's already been used and permitted once, so it makes the permitting process much more streamlined this go around as well. Here we are.
Okay. Any questions for Mike that we haven't gone over?
Mayor, yeah, I want to thank Councilor Adolph for his kind words, but I also want everyone to know that this council and previous councils have made it a point that beaches are really frankly our most important asset, and we need to do everything we can to keep its connectivity and to make it an absolute beautiful place for people who live here, people who work here, and people who visit here for now and the future, and we're deeply committed to that concept.
Here. Good.
The poetry in motion, Mr. Town Manager. And just on a less positive note, John, could you help us understand, or maybe Mike, procedurally, the determination of the critical wildlife ownership, whether it's state-owned or not, process that will be utilized to make that determination, is that a conversation that the town will have with the state, or will it be determined by the litigation that's out there, potential litigation that's out there pending? Or both, or whichever one comes first, or how will it work?
It may not involve the litigation at all. It may involve the state making that determination, independent of the litigation at this point in time. If that's the decision of the state, then presumptively the process would continue.
They would make that formal decision based upon a request from the town or a query from the town, or how would it work procedurally?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, that's part of the process that's ongoing.
Thank you.
And let's say, because I know that, down by the critical wildlife area, one of the most seriously eroded parts of the beach and risk to property owners and structures is the Leonardo Arms, particularly that one building. If we don't get state funding, then is there a mechanism where we could solicit contributions from the property owners?
Well, I think, one of the things that what we're really trying to do is continue on a path and treat the beach as the town's beach for all intents and purposes, and not sort of get down as granular as you're bringing up, but that may be the case. And as Mike indicated, there'll be a point in time where you might be faced with that hard decision. We're doing everything we can, our control, to avoid that decision ever coming to your desk. It may be unavoidable, but we're going to do our best. We can't guarantee it, which is why he mentioned it. But there are other factors in play. And one of the factors, or perhaps the primary factor right now that could influence that, is ongoing dispute with who owns that land between the private property owner and the state. So we're monitoring that situation, but we're not necessarily a party to that right now. I don't just watching to see how that moves forward.
Okay. Any other questions for, while Mike's here?
I'd move to approve the supplemental task authorization.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Mike, thanks for coming in. We appreciate all your updates, and the staff and Roger and everybody that's involved, doing a great job with that. And it is our number one asset, Roger. You're
Thank you
absolutely
very
right
much.
about that.
Appreciate that. We should probably plan to get together early in 2022. By then, our application will be submitted. State Lands will comment formally on the ownership, and we'll have all of the residents back, so it might be a good time for community outreach and some community workshops to out to the the individual details on the project and what it's going to look like, what does it look like during construction, those kind of things. Look forward to meeting you, going through that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't know whether I'll still be in office in 15 years, but hopefully I'll still be around. Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. We'll go back to 12A. 12A. We finished the accessory. Okay, 12A. Administrative agenda. This is a resolution to allocate funds for the purchase of a restroom trailer from Ready to Go Restroom Trailers for Palm Avenue Beach Access, the amount of $70,600, utilizing Tourist Development Council funding as budgeted in fiscal year 2020 budget, piggybacking Florida Sheriff's Contract FSA 20-EQU 18.0 heavy equipment. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move to approve resolution 2158.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously, 4-0. Councilman Beach stepped out. Okay, the next item is fencing equipment purchase. This is Resolution 21-57, allocate and appropriate funds, the purchase of fencing equipment and accessory items for Fort Myers Beach Elementary and Bay Oaks, the amount of $36,140 is budgeted in fiscal year 2022 budget. Piggybacking Lee County's contract, RFP 160553 DKR. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve Resolution 2157.
And a second over here.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is Resolution 21-51, impact fees for Bay Oaks sidewalks. This is to allocate and appropriate road impact funds and appropriate a contract? Approve a contract with Scott Commercial Contracting LLC for concrete construction work and accessory items for Bay Oaks front parcel and School Street sidewalk in the amount of $32,879 in the fiscal year 2022 budget, piggybacking Lee County's contract B1 90074 JJB, concrete flat work, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and other related items contract. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve Resolution 2151.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion?
I've got a question. On the packet page 3-4, seems to show the sidewalk in the street not aligned with that's the property lines. Angle there.
Where are you? At the top of the page?
364, it shows
Yes.
Estera Boulevard and I assume School Street.
Yes.
And it shows a sidewalk going at an angle. The street going at an angle compared to the property lines.
Put it at the top of the page?
Well, the entire page.
The whole length.
So it starts out close to the property line, and by the time it's at the top of the page, it's quite a ways away from the property line.
I speak to that.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. It was buried in the book.
Chelsea O'Reilly, Public Works Director. So that is the School Street sidewalk, correct, that you're referring to in that exhibit?
I assume it's School Street, it's not indicated. It does
So
say, yeah, okay.
there's conflicts at Estero and School Street that we have to avoid. And then connecting into the future planning of Bay Oaks at the intersection of Oak and School, that's why the sidewalk is skewed.
It's for the Bay Oaks plans.
Yes, so,
For the Bay Oaks plan.
yes.
Right?
Yeah,
That's my-
the future sort of circular part in front of the new community building, that dead center of that intersection, so it has to be skewed toward the lines.
Oh, okay. Question?
Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item D, concrete work, Fort Myers Beach Elementary School. This is to approve Resolution 21-56, allocate and appropriate funds for contracting with Scott Commercial Contracting LLC for concrete construction work and accessory items for Fort Myers Beach Elementary School, the amount of $27,758 as budgeted in fiscal year 22 budget, piggybacking Lee County's contract B1 90074 JJB, concrete at work, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and other related items contract. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 21-56.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is FPL Lights Downtown. This is authorization to install roadway lighting on Crescent Street, First Street, Second Street, Third Street, and Fifth Street in conjunction with the downtown sidewalks project. Is there a motion to approve the installation of this lighting?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think just we have to have a little bit of conversation here. So, in the past, kind of used sodium vapor lights, and then on the side streets where we had lighting on FPL poles. And when opportunity arose, we would replace that with LED lighting. However, this is a little different because in the numbered streets area in Crescent, in that area, besides doing our water and stormwater project, we're installing sidewalks for connectivity. So because we're doing that, that's raising the question of street lighting from the standpoint of, obviously, we would put the conduit in, where the pole boxes and poles might go with that street lighting. And then, of course, where those pole boxes and poles might go is a function of what type of lighting you would like to see us use at that location and perhaps prospectively as we talk about the side streets. So with all that being said, just wanted to give you all an opportunity to give us some feedback, and hopefully you can reach a consensus on what you would like to see there. So that we can continue the construction of our project and not create retrofits down the road. So that's why the item's on your agenda. And it's really more of an issue of type of lighting and lighting spacing. And then we can fill in the blanks from there.
One thing when I saw this came to mind with me is that I know that through our numerous discussions with the committees and the consultants about lighting, is that they're pretty adamant that you don't want to be changing colors of lights. Going from a bright white street to a amber street creates a period of time when your eyes don't adjust. It's a potentially unsafe condition. Now, right now, of course, we pretty well know that the amber heads that we're desiring to put on Estero or other projects are not currently in the pool of approved products by FP&L. But I would recommend that we design for those products and keep the lighting around the downtown area and Estero consistent.
I agree with Bill. I know that when I went out with Turtle Time people, that there were lights from Fifth Street, particularly that shone out to the beach. So, and have consistency, it would make sense to me that this all be an amber project.
I'm with that.
I'm fine with it as long as it's all consistent. I think what they're looking for is, it's gonna be difficult, I think, to determine where these pull boxes are gonna be. We don't know how many lights or what light we're gonna use.
To what standard we're going to illuminate the road to.
Yeah, it'd be difficult to. We'll listen to Chelsea.
Okay, so timing is of the essence because, as you guys know, Mr. Stark is down there doing sidewalk, the water, and the storm. FPL has on their APL approved products list amber light right now that we could sign an agreement with them and have them put up based on this spec. If you choose to wait until I believe it's the Visionaire on the approved product list, then we'll just have to tear up the sidewalk down the road and
Chelsea, just a quick question. I thought we heard in our deliberations on the lighting issue that the county was putting in a couple of Visionaire lights in their jurisdictional area on the island.
I'm not,
Did I
they may be
did I-
putting
I
it
didn't- did I-
at the Crescent and Estero signal project.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I believe that's the fixture that was chosen for our Old San Carlos Estero project. I'd have to go back and look at the plans. But consistency, yes.
I think with our conversations earlier that we changed the heads that you use in Old San Carlos to match what the county was doing at their request at Crescent Street. And that was that amber fixture. Now with with the specifications of the fixture known, even if they're not approved, that could be designed in. Right? Without light placements. There's lights there now, right? Maybe not adequate lights, but there are some street lights.
Potentially, but then the town would have to bear the costs of the pole boxes and the conduit. Whereas if it was already approved by FPL would provide those items as part of the project.
So you're suggesting, let's, in the reasons of time sensitivity, to go ahead and utilize the tariff-approved amber light, FPNL light. Is that what you're suggesting? Just so I understand. I think I agree with you, but I just make sure I understand what you're asking.
Short answer is yes.
Okay.
The only problem
I'm
is if-
fine, whatever, yeah, I understand the challenges, but at some point, these guys have to do something too, so.
They do, but I was just thinking that, the problem with the one that's now tariff approved is it's very low
agree.
lumens.
I agree.
And so if you design for that, you're gonna be over designing. Or
Somebody smarter than me is gonna have to figure that out. You make a good point, Bill. I don't know what the
Well,
answer
has there
is.
been any photometric study in those areas based on that light that you just talked about? Determine how many lights are gonna be needed, where the pole boxes should go?
Well, let's just start with the fact that it's a different standard than we would use, for example, on Estero because it's a residential street. So it's gonna be a different standard in terms of how much light we want to create. We have some preliminary information from FPNL, I believe.
I'm just trying to pin down, how many lights is it and what's it gonna cost?
and what's our timeline? I mean, we don't really know when they're gonna be approved by FPNL, if they are.
Well, we've been talking with FPNL, so, we're pretty confident that if you give us the green light, we'll be okay. It's just a question of whether this is an acceptable solution.
So there are no lights on the numbered streets right now. The lights are for the bridge. This would put in 15 poles, which is the biggest burden, coordinating that with the contractor and having them mobilized. And there would be a replacement of 5 existing fixtures.
And Chelsea, is it your understanding that the tariff would cover all of those costs?
I believe so, yes.
I'm comfortable with the town proceeding. I appreciate the challenge, of course, with, if we do eventually get the visionary light approved, but since there's no cost to the town, maybe at some point we could upgrade those if it made sense. But I do think I would yield to Dan or Bill, but I assume a photometric study has to be done at some point to determine what our needs are.
Well, at the end of the day, if you don't have the coverage, it doesn't matter what the light is.
No.
If you're just putting poles up to put poles up, doesn't make any sense.
No.
Be like trying to light your house and not having an idea how much light you need or what you want. It just doesn't make sense.
I'll get, just to kind of remind you that the few side streets where we do have lights, you're talking about 2 or 3 lights. On a side street, I'm going to try to give you an example. Like Avenida Creator, there's one at the end of the street and there's one mid-block. That's it. So, it's not going to be lit at the level you would think for sort of, definitely Estero and other types of major roadways. It's residential.
And 15 more poles over the 5 existing that you said are there, 5 luminaries that are there now. It'd be nice
One
to
or
see
two-
where
it's one
those
or-
are.
Yeah, it's 1 or 2 per.
Street, essentially. So what about Crescent? Probably the busiest street. How many would be on that street?
I don't know that we know that. Do we?
I'm not opposed to anything else. I'm just curious as to where they're gonna go. Is there 3 on each street? Is Crescent getting 5? Is it? 'Cause I'm quite certain we'll get asked that question.
Well, I mean, we can get into the engineering now that we know that you've picked a fixture.
Well, I assume, no, the 5 of the existing ones are along Crescent. That's where there's a power line running down.
Light is Margaritaville gonna throw?
The space station.
All right. Any more discussion?
I move to approve the authorization.
Second that. Further discussion? Objection? Carries unanimously. Okay, we'll go down to item G. Tier 1 Water and Stormwater SRF Supplemental Task Authorization, ABA. This is to authorize the town manager to execute an agreement for Tier 1, 17 side streets, water and stormwater SRF technical services during construction in the amount of $157,050 on proposal 240-000-0114 with Angie Brewer and Associates. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to execute the agreement?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is H, Resolution 21-52, Estero Boulevard Lighting Recommendation. This is to approve Resolution 21-52, Estero Boulevard Roadway Lighting, Safety Lighting Recommendation, ratifying the decision made at the October 7th Management and Planning Session to recommend to Lee County to install amber lighting along Estero Boulevard that functions as an arterial roadway in its day-to-day use and authorize the mayor to coordinate implementation. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2152 that we received today with the changed wording from what was originally in the packet.
That's what I was going to say. I'll second then.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
I have some changes that I made, because probably like a lot of you, when I read the packet, the original one, there were so many edits. I didn't see the resolutions being viable. So I wrote up alternative whereas clauses that I'd like to hand out to the council for consideration.
Okay.
Just for clarity, while Bill's handing those out, John, could you comment on the fact that we got a different resolution from the one in the packet?
As far as legality, I don't believe that there's any reason why you can't adopt the original or the modified that's been handed out.
I was just trying to preserve for the record, why was there a modification? What is it?
Yeah, I could address that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear in my
Yeah,
question.
there was erroneous cut and paste that referenced was really more of a specification for white lighting than amber lighting.
And I'll just point out, the reason why I wrote this up too is I figured, that the town, the committees, the staff, the consultants went through a lot of time went through a lot of rationale to why we went the way we did. And I think that this resolution should stand on its own to say why we came to the decisions that we did. So I expanded what was said here a lot. And I also wanted to emphasize the fact that this is a county road. Like, there's a place here where it says, whereas the town of Fort Myers Beach's arterial road is Estero Boulevard. It's actually the county's road. And I want that pretty clear going forward.
Well, are you asking to add these or substitute them?
Add both, actually, because
So
there's.
add two. It's already there.
There's some that don't, there's some that become redundant with this. And then the one where it says the whereas town lighting engineers, et cetera, I kept. Like the arterial road one, I would scratch. The rest of them I would like to add.
Can we just make it easier? So the first whereas on the town's substitute is good, Bill? You have any questions
Yeah, the
for
one
that
about the statutes, that's pretty boilerplate.
Okay, and then Article 10, the second one on the town substitute?
Again, pretty
It's
boilerplate.
the third one that you want to replace?
Yes.
Okay, the fourth one you're good with?
Yes.
Okay. And the fifth one, do you replace that language with one of yours?
Yes.
That one would come out, the proposal, and the sixth you're okay with?
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear.
Last one, the only change I made on the seventh one was to add amber LED shielded fixtures. The last two notes here have already been changed with the new resolution.
Now, I guess we just walk through the ones that you propose in your handout and see if there's council consensus to add one or more of those.
I don't see a need to add any of them, actually, to be honest with you. I mean, everything here, they already know.
The
Not
idea
telling
is to
them anything.
memorialize this in the resolution.
Yeah, I've got no problem with adding them. It's something that, putting in writing what we've been saying, so he's just making it stronger. I've got no problem with adding them.
I don't think it has any legal force one way or the other. It's, we got where we are.
Just don't see the purpose of us having to tell them that we generate millions of dollars in sales tax revenue to them. They already know that. I understand why you want to put it in there, but if it doesn't add any legal benefit, I don't see the need to put it in there.
Whereas clauses have garbage like that in them all the time, if I can be colloquial. Whereas clauses never have any, and unless there's a court contested case where the court is looking for background and intent. Whereas clauses never really have a legal purpose. They're just a statement. So.
And also the intent is to, add stronger to our argument to get more of the county to contribute. County contribution.
We're kind of contradicting ourselves in one of these as well. It's going to make the mayor's job even more difficult to be negotiating. When you're talking about, there was original conversation about having the visionary light, which was 715 lumens, where the nanometer, or the 560 was much higher, but that wasn't something that was supported by Marine Resource Task Force. And here you're putting in the wavelength shorter, so contradicting. You are asking for the visionary, but it contradicts what you're putting in here as a whereas.
No, because this is wavelength. This is not color
understand that.
temperatures, not Kelvin. And the wavelengths recommended should, the cooler temperatures, the ones to avoid are wavelengths shorter than 560 nanometer. Anything longer than that, it gets warmer.
Well, I don't have any problem with adding these in resolution.
Okay, I'll move then to approve resolution 2152 with the modified whereas clauses, and make sure we're using also the modified resolution 2152 that is not the one in the packet, the one that we received.
Well, let's substitute just.
Substitute.
Second.
Question.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with all of these. I just need to understand better. Whereas cool temperatures lighting with wavelengths shorter than 560 nm are known to disorient sea turtle hatchlings and lead them away from the water. Is the purpose of that then to help them select the appropriate amber light? I mean, what's the I understand the purpose of the other whereas is to sort of position ourselves, but is that help direct them to the appropriate amber solution? Also, Deech, help me understand.
Yes, it's also the core reason why amber is the solution. And it's a definition of what amber is, because amber is a color. I'm not sure if it's specific to that wavelengths longer than 56 or 560 nanometers.
You're correct.
John, is there any reason why you would object to having these?
Any other discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Resolution. Okay, the next item is final public comment. If I'm not mistaken. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes.
Steve Johnson, Chair of the Marine Resource Task Force. I think maybe I got my advisory report in late, and I missed the advisory committee items and reports earlier. Is it the will of the council that I quickly review this now, or would you prefer I do it for time next week?
Anything crucial on there, Steve?
It's the update on the shore nest area and the FWC plan, just as a notification to you, and their use of glyphosate down there. Also, just looking for a recommendation to the town on the potential resolution or maybe a discouragement of using glyphosate in the
All right, I'll
EC.
tell you what, you're here. Why don't you just run through it real quickly and
Okay, it's been.
and
open
realize that
meeting,
next
Mayor.
time you're going to be admonished heavily. for
Matters
this.
kicked out
I
the
think
side.
Amy was
Okay,
out of town.
thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you,
Amy was
Council.
out of town.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead.
So quickly, just the update from the Marine Resource Town Council, or Advisory Board, is that the FWC presented a stewardship plan to the Marine Resource Task Force for their input. It effectively outlined the stewardship plan between the FWC, the town, and the condo associations of Carlos Point, Castle Beach, and Islands End. But as part of that management recommendation, they were considering the option of using broadcast spraying glyphosate, or commercially known as Roundup, across the entire beach to try to eliminate the sand spurs, which are attaching to the hatchlings and causing them sepsis or leading to sepsis. And so Murph did actually put a letter together to them, basically objecting to the use of glyphosate for the reasons of protecting the marine environment, the safety of humans, and also our waterways. We point our fingers at across the bay. We point it up the river and we tell them, don't send your water here. But yet, I think we need to be good stewards here and not use herbicides on our own beaches. So essentially, that letter and recommendation will go to the FWC. However, the Murph asked that we had a unanimous recommendation to Town Council to ask potentially for a resolution or some type of prohibition or discouragement of using herbicides, specifically glyphosate, in the EC zone specifically, which is essentially the beachfront. That's a request. And the second one, actually, and the timing is a little bit off here, but it was a unanimous request to the Town Council on general roadway lighting throughout the town. They unanimously voted to recommend the Town Council to only consider narrowband amber lighting solutions when adding or replacing roadway lighting on the island. And last but not least, just to commend the Town Council on passing Resolution 2152, which follows both the public safety and the Marine Research Task Force recommendations to Town Council. That's it. Any questions?
Steve, on the first one, were you, so just for the action item, did you want the town then to pass a resolution?
Yeah, we
asking
were
them not-
preempted by state law, so we could not. Murph attempted to potentially put an ordinance preventing the use of glyphosate on the island. We were preempted by state law, as was heard by our council, Heron. So that was dropped. So I don't know. I'm sure you can't make an ordinance, but I don't know if it's not being really adept here. I don't know if it's a resolution.
But we could pass a resolution and then forward it via letter to FWC. Is that what you were kind of hoping for?
Exactly, yeah, it's in support, I suppose, also of not using that product on our beach.
That resolution, would that be language similar that Murph has already come up with?
Correctly, I believe I lacked attaching the letter that we were going to send from Murph. So I will send that, but yeah, using that same terminology.
I would certainly be open to that, yeah.
Anything we need to do, or?
Put it together, and then we can look at it at the next.
Okay, Roger, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Little mailbox there.
Any other, well, this will be, is there any final public comment from anyone? Anyone wish to speak? Get one more crack, Steve, if you wanted, because technically was your committee report. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Town managers items?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I just want to mention two things to you this afternoon. One is that from our internal staff perspective, we're doing very good with our COVID-19 protocols. Fortunately, that's not necessarily true of some of our staff's family members. And in the past week, we had two of our staff had family members who passed away. And a couple of weeks ago, we had another one who passed away. So while we're doing very good in terms of our staff, some of them are fortunately suffering through some family situations. And we're trying everything we can do to support them through those situations. But I just want to let you know, in a couple of cases, it has left us short-staffed. We're trying to work through that. So just so you're aware. The second thing I wanted to bring up is been contacted by Dr. Margaret Bannon, representing an entity who'll be working with the Fort Myers Beach Fire Department on developing its strategic plan 2022 through 2025. And their reason for their inquiry was to ask who we would like to have representing the town on those sessions, or to provide input and feedback. So I wanted that offer open to you. I don't know if you want to select a representative, or want staff to be the representative, or have a combination of a council member and staff.
But,
Fort Myers Beach Fire Rescue District, they're embarking on working on their strategic plan.
anybody interested in sitting in on that?
We certainly support staff member
Yeah.
being involved. Communication with the fire department of the town is.
With that being said, would you like me to extend an invitation to the chairperson of the Public Safety Committee also to participate in that, since they have as you probably all know, there's a member of the Fire Rescue District on our public.
Yes.
Seems to make sense.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
I had one question for Roger. Roger, to the extent that you can, if you can't, you can't, but just wondered if you had any update on, you sent us a copy of one of the checks that came as the COVID stimulus package. Any update on guidance from the state in terms of how those funds can be expended and what the town's strategy or plan is at this point?
Well, so the sort of the cleanest use for the town, if you will, the one that absolutely is our water/stormwater project, of a bulletproof thing. What we're continuing to do is see what other towns are doing and the reaction to those suggestions. So we're basically monitoring Florida League of Cities, National League of Cities, and other places to see what we do, what places are doing. There's, for example, one city that proposed using it for a golf course, and everyone's reaction to that was to have the money in your back pocket, because I don't think that's going to fly. Their response was that, well, it's recreation, and can judge whether we think that's a big reach or not. But so we're looking to that to explore options. My suggestion would be that at the November M&P, we have a brief discussion, and the brief discussion, and I'll just sort of tell you now so you can start thinking about it, would be for each of you to sort of make your own individual short list of items you think, would be objectives for us to possibly use that funding for. Staff would compile that list, perhaps vet that list, so we don't have something that we don't really think is the aerodynamic, and get where that worked out, and then worked on sort of as a group, the approved list. We're hoping to kick that process off at the November MP.
Appreciate that. And then, so just to reinforce the aggregate amount, it's theoretically 2 checks at 1.7 million. Is that, do I have that correct?
Yes, sir.
It's helpful. Thank you.
Hey, town attorney's items.
I have a question for John. I wondered if you could give us an update on the beach access question you had been working on?
We have, based upon our prior research that we reported back to you, that we would require 100% buy-in by successors in interest, individual homeowners in any subdivision that's had this. We have not been successful to date in getting that feedback from the property owners that they're willing to do that.
We sent out a letter?
Yes, and I know that in some instances, I believe we have. I will check with Chad. He was the one who, the staff person, was running point on that. and let you know, each one of you individually, but I believe so. But I can't.
None of my
I can't-
neighbors had mentioned getting a letter to me, and usually they're calling me saying, what does this mean?
Okay,
So,
I will, make sure, and if they haven't, we'll get them out.
okay, thank you.
Anything further? Nothing further? Okay,
Unless
thank
you have any additional questions.
Okay, we'll go to council members' items and reports. This FMB camera project, is that, we discussed that already, have we not? Did you want us to further discuss this?
Well, just so you know, so we have the other vendor who was on the sheriff's shortlist coming in at the next meeting, just to be clear about that. Our goal would be for, hopefully for the council to reach a decision and so we can get the cameras in and installed for season to see hopefully what the positive impact would be. So trying to super fast track it, but we do want to move it forward expeditiously so that by the time we hit next budget season, you'll have had enough experience with them, judge how effective they are, what they are accomplishing, perhaps what they're not accomplishing, to see if there are further actions required of the town in the arena of public safety. So wasn't to necessarily press you to a decision today, but to make sure that there's any other products or things you would like us to explore for those to come forward. But short of that, we're pretty much focusing in on people who are currently working with LCSO.
Okay, we'll go down the list. Councilman Veach.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a bird migration now, and during the last weekend with or the weekend before the boat races, there's a small kind of spoil island sandbar that's just not far from Town Hall here. We estimated had over 1,400 birds on it from over a dozen different species. It also had children chasing the birds and people out there generally harassing them, thinking, I don't know, that it was good sport. I've talked to FWC and some other interested parties and the town staff, and I'd like to see if we can reach consensus to get a couple of signs that when the birds are on this island, that the base people can go and put the signs out in the morning and take them in the evening, just telling people to try to leave the birds alone. And it's a FWC approved sign. It's their lightest one because they have signs for nesting and they have signs for migration and wintering over birds. And I think there are different laws that attribute that. So this is something that I was asked just to get consensus from council if they're willing to have a minimal cost to acquire a couple of signs and put them out only when the birds are active on that island.
Any problem? I would, you probably already thought of it, to incorporate in the sign the reasons for, that they are migrating, that they're tired, whatever. Then if people are educated, they'll have a better appreciation of why you're trying to discourage their bad behaviors.
And that's actually all in the sign.
I'm all for it.
I'm with you, Bill.
Okay. Another thing that's come up, and this is from one of our constituents, some of our constituents, is that the ordinance that we have about water sports and chair rentals, I think could really use some visiting. There's the way it works now is we have in this ordinance 2751 or area 49 50 51 is that we have set a limit on the number of chair and parasail licenses, and people who have those permits can apply to keep them and keep them inactive. Currently, so some of these, there are restrictions on where these can go. They have to be non-residential properties, and there are actually some permits. There's more permits out there than are being used. The people who own the properties can't get a permit because the permits are being held by somebody else. So that not only keeps them from really utilizing their property in a way that that makes sense to them, but it also forces them to follow what someone else's idea of this business would be. So I think it's something that's worth visiting. I'm not very comfortable with the idea of having it reminds you of like a taxi medallion in Manhattan, where we have an ordinance that creates a rarity and people can sit on it. And then that ordinance itself gives a kind of a value to this license that we've created a rarity on by our ordinance. So I would like to look at that sometime, maybe just have a good discussion about it at a future M&P and see if it's something we want to delve deeper into.
I think that's worth discussing in an M&P, absolutely.
I'm certainly willing to discuss it, and I understand it seems to have had some unintended consequences. I was on the council when we passed it, and the reason that we put a limit on it is we had a proliferation going on, and residents were coming to us and complaining about the number of rentals that were available. It just kept spreading down the beach. So the fact that some people are sitting on them doesn't make me unhappy, but I understand it has some unintended consequences. So I'm not against discussing it, but I think we have to be very careful how we deal with it.
I agree. We don't want to create more unintended consequences.
Yes.
Trying to give us some other unintended consequences. Now, and to kind of reiterate a bit on what the Murph chair was saying, is that this is kind of my understanding from listening to some of the conversations is the sand spurs are proliferating in that south part of the beach, and they're causing problems with the nesting birds. They're also causing problems with everybody because nobody likes sand spurs. Right? And the way that section of the beach is being, we are trying to artificially create an environment that mimics the natural environment that these seabirds like to go to nest. When normally that would be overwashed with salt water, and that would clear the vegetation out pretty thoroughly. But what we're doing is we're raking. In a lot of ways, if you rake, once the sand spurs have generated seed, you are planting sand spurs. And volunteers have gone out there and picked it by hand, but even that's not really adequate. But there are different ways to rake the beach, different ways mechanically to handle it. Some are better than others. And my understanding, there's two different organizations that are handling some of the raking. One is much better at containing these than the other, and it's the other that wants to use glyphosate. So I understand, it's one of these things where there's no, that the sand spurs are causing damage to wildlife. Glyphosate causes damage to wildlife. There's no perfect solution. But I think my understanding is that with a little bit of cooperation, maybe some support from the town, that we can come up with a enhanced way of mechanically handling this without glyphosate. Another idea is to use simple things like salt water. Simulate, if you will, the area being inundated by salt water by spraying salt water or very saltier than seawater over these plants and get them to control them in that way. So that's my understanding of where that is. Third thing, and this is short, we had a resolution in the last meeting about recommending a perennial peanut grass or something. I had a conversation with somebody who said that Native Plant Society is considering moving the perennial peanut into the invasive plant category. Because apparently it doesn't seed in this environment, it still spreads. That's all I have.
As I remember, Bill, based on your comment, we didn't pick a plant. What we said to Roger was that they would consult with our experts, people that were doing the work, and something would be picked that was appropriate for the area. So we didn't pick perennial peanut.
It's in the resolution. I just wanted to make that point, though.
I believe we modified the resolution by stating that.
This is information that's new to me since the last meeting.
I appreciate you sharing it, but I just wanted to make it clear that
That's my recommendation.
we haven't picked a particular plant.
Okay. That's all.
Nothing additional.
I wanted to bring up, I believe we all received an email from the chair of the LPA. She was requesting that we set up a joint meeting. There's some big stuff coming to them. She doesn't want it to go back and forth too many times between us because it's the area that we have the zoning in progress on, and we have time constraints on that. So if it goes back and forth too many times between us and the LPA, we could run out of time. So she's just concerned with that we figure out that we're on the same page at some point, so she requested a joint meeting, and I'd like to support her in that request.
And myself as well. And
That's being scheduled, is that
I
correct?
think she suggested a date.
This is, I've heard in the email.
What was it, Roxanne, the
Oh, but I thought we
24th?
we talked about doing it at this, after.
The,
the
to,
next
as far as
MP.
I'm concerned, the date's up to Amy. She's going to control it, so.
Well, she threw, Megan threw out.
Threw out a date, but I don't think she cleared that with Amy first, so.
Right, okay. Right,
Well, we now have the request and we'll work with the parties to create a date.
Okay.
But since the subject's up, is my misunderstanding, the joint meeting with the Public Safety Committee that was requested, has been set up for the day of the MP
MMP, after the
in
MMP.
November.
That be following the MNP?
Yes, sir.
One already set for the Public Safety Committee?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now this is a second request, and I'm sure now that these two committees had one, you'll get others.
yeah.
Well, I do believe that Megan's is especially
She's-
legitimate because of the time constraints with the zoning in progress. My last item is, I've been carrying on continuing discussions with Jason about demolitions that are going on the island. People are coming in and they're tearing down old houses. And when they tear down the house, they literally strip every tree from the property. And when I ask him about that, one of the things he indicates to me is that we have a very limited list of trees that they're not supposed to be removing. When I talk to him about it further, though, he says that sometimes the trees are in the way of drainage, et cetera, and I want to be cognizant of that and care about that. So maybe the way that we need to come about it, rather than keeping people from tearing up the trees, is putting some kind of change to our code in which we require that they replace trees on their property if they do tear them out, with something of similar size or whatever. So, but I thought started out to be a simple request to Jason, turned out, of course, as always, to be much more complicated than I anticipated. So I just wondered if I had any support to place a discussion of this issue on a future MMP.
I certainly agree. John, was there any kind of state preemptive laws about
Yes, sir.
rules?
We'll bring that forward to you at the MNP. It has imposed some restrictions and some preemptions on the ability of local governments to regulate removal of trees, but
Again, that's why
there's flexibility.
we might be able to come in and ask for them to replace those trees rather than prohibit them being torn out, so. No, I just thank you for your support to put that on the future.
And,
Madam Vice Mayor covered mine for the LPA. That was the only thing I had.
okay. Couple of items. I wanted to thank the Chamber of Commerce for their being on the boat races, their particular part of it. Thank you for their hospitality to us, so forth. Turned out to be a pretty good day. And one other item I have, I'm sad to announce that we lost a longtime resident here on the beach yesterday. That would be Gordon Flip Harvey. Flip, I don't know if you all knew him, but anyhow, he was a lifelong resident here at Fort Myers Beach. Actually moved to the island when he was 2 years old with his parents in 1946. They were preceded down here by his grandparents, came here in 1936, who they established C.I. Harvey Realty, which was was probably one of the first real estate brokerage firms here on the island, and it was still here in the 70s and the 80s. I recall it very well. But anyhow, Flip attended Beach Elementary School and went to Fort Myers High School. And upon graduation from high school, he enlisted in the Air Force and served his country honorably and also did a tour of duty in Vietnam. Later on, of course, he had his professional life, but later on in his retirement, he was a founding board member of the Concerned Citizens of Fort Myers Beach, which was another sort of activist organization on a par with, say, the Civic Association at the time. This was sort of an offshoot of that. Was a founding member, board member, and an officer of that organization. He was also appointed to the Fort Myers Beach Fire Control District Board by then Governor Charlie Crist to fill a spot that was created upon the suspension of a different member at the time, and he served honorably in that position as well. I was friends with Flip and of course Trudy, and someone once asked me the beginning there after our first terms, after the first 3 years, is it, don't you hate getting all those phone calls at home? And this was before emails and texts and so forth. And I said, well, to be quite honest with you, I've only received 2 calls at home in 3 years. Both of them were from Flip Harvey. But anyhow, anyhow, we remember Flip today. And Trudy, we send you our deepest sympathies and condolences. We'll remember Flip's good spirit and also wish you well in without Flip now. But anyhow, on behalf of a very thankful and grateful town, we say goodbye, Flip, and Trudy, we wish you all the best. So that's all I have here today. And if there is nothing else for the good of the organization, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Moved. Second. Objection. We are adjourned at 12:42. Thank you.